Good morning, everyone. I CA Rahul Sureka from Dhanbad branch of CIRC of ICI. We are here today for the seminar of Applicability of IND AS in PSUs and recent amendment in GST, organized by Committee for Members in Industry and Business of ICAI and hosted by Dhanbad branch of CIRC of ICI. Now we will like to take welcome address of Dhanbad branch of Chairman of Dhanbad branch of CIRC of ICI, CA Pratik Ganeriwal, sir. Sir, please give 2 minutes, please, sir.
Good morning, everyone. The topic for the day, as said by Rahul Sureka, is on two topics, which is on recent amendments in GST as well as applicability of IND AS in PSU. Since I am a member from industry and this program is mainly focused for the members who are in industries, or are CA members who are working in industry, I would welcome all the dignitaries who are present over here. Our Chairman CA Hansraj Chaukji, Chairman of Committee of Members in Industries and Business, Vice Chairman CA Durgesh Kavraji, and our speaker, keynote speaker, who are the important persons for the seminar. Recent amendments in GST, CA Gagan Kedia ji, and for applicability of IND AS in PSU, R Mohan ji. We are very much thankful to you for giving us your precious time for providing this seminar. And more important, we have committee members, the convener and vice convener from Bokaro branch also, CA Ravi ji and Anup ji, who will be the part of this program. And we have two important persons from two important PSUs of India. One, we have CA Vinod Gupta ji from SAIL, and another from Coal India CFO, CA Sunil Mehta ji will be joining us shortly. So this was a small summary from my side regarding the program. I hope you all will participate in this program by listening to our keynote speaker and make the best out of it for 3 hour sessions. Thank you. Over to Rahul.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to take welcome address from Sir C. Vinod Gupta, who is a AGM in finance and he has a vast experience in GST. He look after GST returns of SAIL Jharkhand units and ITC availments. He is a master consultant for GST issues in SAIL and Bokaro Steel Plant. He material manage accounting and related issues. He has passed CA in January 2008. Now over to you, sir. Please address the audience. Sir, your voice is not audible. I think you are mute.
Thank you, Rahul ji. And especially thanks to Pratik ji, who is the chairman of Dhanbad chapter. Thanks for conducting seminar and including SAIL on such a important issue, which is recent amendment in GST and applicability of IND AS in PSU. Thank you so much. And recent amendment in GST, which creates a lot of difficulties in our industry. Like earlier, the condition is fulfilled, supposed to satisfy the fourth condition for availability of ITC. Like the first condition, you must have a tax invoice and debit notes. You must have received goods and services, and supplier must have paid taxes, and recipients file GST return regularly, which is fourth condition earlier, but fifth condition was introduced recently, which is section 16 subsection 2 clause A, with effect from January 2022, which is the invoice and debit notes on which ITC are available must be furnished by supplier in GSTR 1 and must be communicated to the recipient in form GSTR 2B, which is lots of earlier was the 5% is the option, but recent amendment, which is 100%, we have to must be reconcile or so lots of difficulties we will facing right now. I want to see what the come out for the session, and I think lots of beneficial to us. So thank you, Pratik ji and Rahul ji.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Now I would like to call CA Ravi Agarwal, sir, to give an introduction to us. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Rahulji. Let me introduce our first speaker for the today, Mr. Mohan R. Lavi. He qualified as a chartered accountant in 1989 and has over 25 years of experience in industry across a variety of industries. He has worked in senior position in finance, in manufacturing and software companies. Mr. Mohan has over 6 years of experience in practice. At present, he is a partner with Mr. K.P. Rao and Company, Chartered Accountants, Bangalore, and heads the IND AS and GST practices of the firm. Mohan is the author of book on IFRS, IND AS, key audit matters, and other related topics. Mohan has spoken at conferences in India and abroad in accounting standards, IFRS, Sarbanes-Oxley, and GST, and is a faculty member with the Institute for their IFRS certification course and registered valuer programs. His articles appear frequently in Hindu Business Line, Deccan Herald, and Bombay Chartered Accountant Journal. Over to you, sir.
Yeah. So, good morning to all the participants, and thank you to Pratik ji for calling me for this seminar. Actually, I should tell all of you that I am actually a replacement speaker. Unfortunately, a good friend of mine, Yagnesh ji, could not make it, and so because of some emergency, so I am here as his replacement. Hopefully, I'll do justice to what Yagnesh ji would have said. I may not be able to quote so many quotations that he normally gives, but I hope at least on the topic I'll be able to sort of justify this part on the applicability of IND AS to public sector undertakings. So let me just try to see if my PowerPoint is be able to share it. Yes, okay. So I'm sure that you all can see the PowerPoint.
Yes, sir.
All right. So this is a topic which is very important from the point of view of PSUs, especially because it's almost been now about 4 to 5 years of IND AS applicability in India, and there have been, it's been a sort of a mixed route we have taken to IND AS conversion. In some cases has been very, very smooth, whereas in some cases it's been a little bit problematical. And especially when it comes to PSU undertakings, there are a couple of issues which are specific to those undertakings, which we shall try to look at from the overall context of IND AS. Within the overall framework of IND AS, let us see what is important from the point of view of only the PSU undertakings. So we will not try to go through all the standards. We will just go through the standards which are applicable, or the major standards that are applicable to the PSU undertaking. But before I get there, I would like to just give you all a little bit of a small introduction as to why this IND AS is considered to be important. I'm not going to say difficult, and I'm not going to say it's difficult or easy or anything like that, because you've already lived with IND AS, and we don't have an option for, apart from following IND AS, we don't have an option now, especially when it comes to PSU undertakings. As all of you all are probably aware, IND AS is the Indian equivalent of IFRS. I'll put it that way. The Indian equivalent of IFRS. We still have some very small carve-outs from the IFRS standards, but by and large, we are on track with the International Financial Reporting Standards, which India has always been following. Previously, it was called as International Accounting Standards. Now it has become International Financial Reporting Standards, and typically we have always been following International Financial Reporting Standards. International Financial Reporting Standards, and their previous thing were called as International Accounting Standards. Now, the purpose behind this change from what was called as IAS to IFRS, or International Accounting Standards to International Financial Reporting Standards, was obviously to focus on financial reporting. That is why the name came as International Financial Reporting Standards. Because typically accounting, I think we should not have much of a problem. All of us will be doing a normal accounting thing. So the focus very clearly was on financial reporting. And for all the participants who are from the PSUs joining here, working in financial reporting, you all would have already observed probably that IND AS has also cast upon us a greater responsibility towards financial reporting. Now the question is that whether the financial reporting is very, very detailed or whether it is in a summary form, the fact remains that the IND AS standards would want us to report items which are to be reported in the manner to be reported, so that there is this very general clause in IND AS which says that the user of the financial statements, they use the specific word saying the user of the financial statements is able to get an ability to grasp the essence of the financial statements by looking at the reporting which has been given there. Now, obviously, as all of you are aware, the annual report has obviously changed. It has become bigger, it has become more lengthier now. It's not because of IND AS, also a few pages have been added to the annual reports. A lot of disclosures have come in. Many a time we get this question, is anybody really reading those many disclosures? Or I'll put it in a different way, does anybody really read those disclosures? It is possible that some analysts may be reading it, but otherwise I think for the general public as such, those disclosures are a little bit too detailed for them to, even for, say, for example, a shareholder or an investor would not probably read all the 400 pages of an annual report. The International Accounting Standards Board and thereby the ICI also has always felt that it is better to report than, or it's better to disclose than not to disclose. So that if you want a certain bit of information, you will definitely be able to find it in the financial statements. So that is the purpose behind this detailed disclosures which have been given there in your IND AS standards. I will come to the small nitty-gritties a little bit later on. If you look at the roadmap for IND AS, we are all aware of this now. Companies with a net worth of less than 250 crores, banks and insurance companies are the only ones who are not in the IND AS roadmap as of now. All the listed companies and companies with a net worth in excess of 250 crores, non-banking financial companies, they're all covered under the IND AS roadmap. It's only these three set of companies which are not coming under the IND AS roadmap. It appears to me that 2023 is from what we're expecting. Both the banks and the insurance companies will shift to IND AS from 2023. RBI has somehow always been giving extensions for implementation of IND AS, and insurance companies, IRDA has also been following suit on that. So we will probably expect it in some time. And as all of you will probably be aware, whenever a company gives a draft red herring prospectus to SEBI for the purpose of their public issue, they will have to restate as per IND AS. This is a requirement as per the SEBI LODR regulations. Whenever they are going to go for a DRHP or prospectus they have to file before the SEBI, they will have to restate for as per IND AS. One of the biggest IPOs, which is expected to come very soon, the one of LIC, will not be having these IND AS numbers because insurance companies as of now are away from this IND AS roadmap. The reason why I'm saying this is because the concept of fair value in IND AS, as all of you are probably aware, LIC is not only an insurance company, it also makes a lot of investments. They've got a very active and very powerful treasury function. So many of these investments may have to be fair valued. We are not aware of, we're not sure it's actually been fair valued or not. But that will not come in India now because the roadmap does not create an opportunity for insurance companies to move over to India. Can LIC voluntarily adopt it? Definitely they can. But will they do it? I don't think they will, because they are waiting for a regulatory approval from the IRDA for them to go ahead with your LIC, with your India's implementation. So we'll have to wait for LIC to do their implementation. And I think from what I know, I think from 2023, both the banks and the insurance companies will move together. They'll move together. They'll convert to India's together. So as far as companies with a net worth of less than 250 crores, I do not think there is going to be any Indias for them. We are going to have something called as the revised AS. Many of these standards are being revised now by the ICAI, and they will be almost as per Indias, but not exactly Indias. So I'll put it that way. So this is the only set of companies who are now not under the Indias roadmap. When it comes to the public sector undertakings, there are certain unique features in the Indian context. One is they are asset heavy entities. A lot of investment goes into them. Extremely asset heavy, extremely huge investments go into that those PSUs. And because of that, those particular standards would come into play. It is the nature of the Indian government to also ensure that PSUs act or set up in important economic sectors. The last time I was in Dhanbad, I think there was a lot of representatives from Coal India who had come in. You look at those coal mining activities. You look at coal mining activities. You look at insurance sector also. You have a lot of government undertakings. You look at, probably may not be now, but airlines. Air India was in the government undertaking. So the PSUs cover very specific niche economic sectors in the country. Manufacturing, we've got heavy electrical company, we've got BHEL, we've got BEL for the electronic components. There are so many people who are defense. You've got companies like Bharat Dynamics and all who are again very, very asset heavy and important from the point of view of the economic this thing here. Now, the reason also why this becomes important is because if you look at Ind AS 106, mineral resources, you look at Ind AS 104, insurance contracts, now it is being revised to Ind AS 117. This is a very significant change. For all the participants, you should know that this is a very significant change because the international accounting standards till today, till these new standards have come in, did not have any standards which are industry specific. I'll put it that way. Which are not industry specific. They only had general principles for standards. They had general principles for standards, but you look at 106, you look at 104, they are becoming industry specific also. This is something which comes in from US GAAP. US GAAP is still extremely industry specific. So the mix and match between US GAAP and the IASB International Accounting Standards is creating the situation wherein industry specific standards are also being issued. Now we're not sure how much they're going to issue in the future, but it is definitely possible. It is definitely possible that the International Accounting Standards Board can think of industry specific standards. They may want to revise 106 on mining. Right now, they're only saying exploration expenditure can be capitalized. That's the only thing they're saying in 106 right now. They may want to give specific formats for mining industry. They may want to give specific instructions for revenue recognition. All these are definitely possible in the future because of the change in the approach of the International Accounting Standards Board to permit entities to also, to also prescribe what is called as industry-specific accounting standards. So the moment we say they are asset heavy, we immediately think of property, plant and equipment. We immediately think of intangible assets. And now, courtesy the moment to Ind AS, we think of investment property. The moment we think of these standards, we should not forget one more standard. Keep that in our mind. Ind AS 36 on impairment of assets. Especially in the present context of all this COVID happening, impairment is going to play a very, very significant part in Ind AS accounting. We normally bunch all these standards together because the moment you have got assets-based standards, we also have possibility of impairment of those particular assets. So the two takeaways from this is that we may have industry-specific standards in the future, or we could have small standards. For example, Ind AS 114 also, regulatory deferral accounts. I'll be speaking a little bit about that today because it's a very interesting standard. It's specific and it will probably apply to PSUs also, some PSUs at least, wherein there's a rate regulation by the regulator. They would have to follow Ind AS 114. So this is an important shift which has been done by the IASB to shift towards industry-specific standards. They are not probably going to issue too many industry-specific standards, but where it is required, where intervention is required, they will definitely intervene and prescribe industry-specific standards, is what my opinion is. So I've already mentioned this, but I will take you all through a summary of these important standards because as many of you who are working in the PSU undertakings, the participants reporting, many of these issues would probably be familiar to you all. You all may have probably got more detailed issues than what is being discussed here, but the substance of the issues will typically be normally the same only. I also forgot to mention about Ind AS 105, which is called as non-current assets held for sale. Non-current assets held for sale. What is becoming clear now in Ind AS is that the purpose for which the asset is being held would determine its classification. The purpose for which the asset is being held would determine its classification. If an entity is holding the asset for the purpose of production of goods and services, Ind AS 16 will apply property, plant and equipment. If an entity has got a piece of land which it wants to, it has got a piece of land next to the railway station in Dhanbad, it does not know what is to be done with it. It just keeps it there, maybe capital appreciation, maybe rental, maybe they do not know what is to be done with it. Unstated future use. Not for the purposes of business of the entity. It will be classified as Ind AS 40 investment property. Entity is holding assets with intention to sell it. It will be classified as Ind AS 105 non-current assets held for sale. And so the purpose behind which an entity is holding these assets would determine its classification under Ind AS. Obviously, transfers between these categories are also permitted because my intention may change. I may not, that piece of land next to the railway station in Dhanbad, I may probably start using it for my own business purpose later on. I may build a warehouse there. I may build a GST, what you can call warehouse there for the purpose of goods to be stocked there. That becomes property, plant and equipment again. So obviously, change between or classification between these standards is also permitted. I am quite sure the participants would have had an opportunity to deal with Ind AS 32, 109 and 107 financial instruments. In particular, 109, all these three standards on financial instruments, because we cannot avoid financial instruments now in Ind AS. That's become an absolute necessity now. One of the reasons why this standard also becomes important, and if I may say so, a little bit more detailed, a more detailed approach to implementation is because India never implemented AS 30, 31 and 32. Our three standards on financial instruments, the AS world, were not implemented by us at all. So there was a little bit of a disconnect there. See, financial instrument standard is a little bit lengthy, I will agree. It is not a standard which you all can read within, let us say, half a day and understand the gist of it. It's a pretty detailed standard. It has been written over 4 years by the IASB. It was revised over 4 years. Ind AS 109 itself took 4 years for the IASB to revise. The problem with the standard, if I may say so, is that it is a little bit interconnected to the remaining standards. It is very much interconnected to the remaining standards. It is not just only for financial instruments, but there could be other implications in other standards also. Classification, measurement, recognition all follow the same principle in Ind AS 109. The disclosures given in Ind AS 107 are also very, very detailed. We are supposed to give a complete breakdown of the risks. We are supposed to give a sensitivity analysis, what will happen in case something changes by 5% and all those things. So it is very obvious that the reader of the financial statement should be able to make out what is the nature of the activities of this particular entity and what the impact will be on the financial statements. One of the problems we had in Ind AS 18 or AS 9 or Ind AS 11, all the standards on revenue recognition, as participants will be aware, we had one problem there, which was that the standard was very small. See, when I say small, I don't mean in terms of, not only the number of concepts there, but also number of paragraphs. An important concept like revenue recognition, they simply said that for sale of goods, transfer of significant risk and rewards. For rendering of services, they said either the POC method or the completed contract method. A similar logic was followed in Ind AS 11 on construction contract. It was very obvious that when an entity recognizes revenue depends upon the contract itself. A blanket principle of substantial transfer of risk and rewards may not work. It could work, but it is subject to interpretation. What Ind AS 115 has done is that it has broken up the standard into 5 different stages and given a more detailed presentation of revenue recognition. The use of the word called performance obligation is very important in Ind AS 115. The standard uses the word called performance obligation very frequently. And of course, as all of you are aware, leases has also been changed substantially. Ind AS 116 has come in. Right of use asset, lease liability, depreciation on right of use asset is what we are going to claim right now. So these are the standards which are important from the PSU undertakings. Apart from Ind AS 114, which I just spoke about, many PSU undertakings also would receive grants from the government. They would also receive grants from the government. So accounting for these grants also becomes a very important part. So Ind AS 20 would come into play there, wherein how do you account for a government grant, the capital approach, income approach, what happens if there is a repayable grant. Those intricacies have been covered in Ind AS 20 on government grants. A few brief things on Ind AS 16. I'm quite sure that many of you have already had experience in implementing the standard and auditors may have asked you questions on this. This is a standard which is very close to all of us because we always had that AS 10 and then, property, plant and equipment was very important. But I'll just give you a few nitty-gritties in the standard. One is they talk about this word called as control over the asset. This is something which all of you all should know that this is going to be a regular feature of Ind AS standards. They use the word called control very, very frequently. They use the word called control very frequently. In fact, control is defined in the framework itself. Now, the revised framework for Ind AS has come in, which talks about control. See, this word called control, okay, it may be a general word, but it is very important for us to understand that control always has to be demonstrated. And the standard can only lead us to the path of proving our demonstration. It will not be able to prove control on it. It is up to us to prove control. Whether it is revenue recognition, whether it is consolidation of a subsidiary company, over which you have got control, control has to be demonstrated. Why am I saying this for property, plant and equipment? Many of the participants would be very familiar with this word called as customer funded assets. A very unique feature of PSU accounting is this thing called as customer funded assets. So basically what happens here is that in case you are manufacturing something for a customer and the customer and the manufacturer requires, let us say, a very costly machine to be imported and used, the customer is going to say, you don't buy the machine, I will buy it for you. I will ensure that the supplier transports it to your premises. You use the machine for the purpose of production of my goods and services. Once you produce my goods and services, you do whatever you want with the machine. You can see here what has happened. In a normal case, you can see what has happened here. The moment he says that at the end of the term, you can do whatever you want with the goods, with the machine, there is a hint that control also is being transferred. Therefore, this entity can show this as a customer funded asset in his books of account. Accounting of that will take place through the revenue recognition standard, because you'll set off some portion of the revenue towards this asset cost. That is what the supplier will do. But we should not forget the fact that why we said customer funded asset can be capitalized, because of the use of that particular word saying that you can do whatever you want with the machine. Demonstration of control has to be there. Somebody should have control. Somebody should, if somebody should have control, somebody should cede control. It's like that. Spare parts which are integrated in the machine will have to be capitalized, as will major inspection costs of the assets. This is the sum and substance of what IND 16 is talking about. On the concept of useful life, I would like to just put in a couple of thoughts to the participants here. We all know that there is a schedule in the Companies Act. That schedule in the Companies Act, incidentally, when the draft schedule was being made, they said indicative useful lives. Indicative is a very dangerous word to use in India. Because indicative means that we can do whatever we want. It is only indicative, it is not mandatory. But in the final draft of the schedule in the Companies Act 2013, we are seeing today, the word used is normally not be different. Useful life will normally not be different. Exactly what it is as per the schedule to the Companies Act, IND AS still gives you the opportunity to change that useful life. We need to keep this in mind because of the fact that the use of the asset, how much is being used, how much the asset has also deteriorated in value, would all come in only from the management. They would be the best people to know that. You all would have probably read in today morning's newspapers that the government is trying to ask many of the PSU undertakings to disclose the fair value of their property. This is obviously, not applicable to those who are already doing a revaluation, but I believe the intention is behind so that, you can get the true worth of the units of the PSU units by disclosing the fair value. I am not sure if it's going to be accounting for fair value or disclosing for fair value, but I think it would be only disclosing, because you cannot mandate everybody to account for fair value. There could also be impairment issues there. We need to consider these factors when you are looking at the concept of useful life. And of course, both the methods are permitted. Cost approach, revaluation approach. Revaluation means it will go and sit in your revaluation reserve. Changes in the revaluation surplus will be impacted in your other comprehensive income. This is also something which I have spoken about Unstated future use also would come under investment property. It's a separate classification only. It is a separate classification. Otherwise, it has got all the features of Ind AS 16 on property, plant and equipment. It will be depreciated unless it is land. If it's a building, land and building will be depreciated. The idea behind this is to ensure that we capture assets for the purpose for which they are going to be used and not just because they are an asset to the entity. Though we would probably see fewer intangible assets in the balance sheets of PSU undertakings, it will normally be computer software and all these things, as compared to the other enterprises. A very interesting feature which has been given in Ind AS 38 and which I think all the participants should definitely be aware of is on this concept of useful life. I will just sort of repeat what I already had told you all regarding property, plant and equipment, but the similar thing exists here also. In fact, there is a specific clause in Ind AS 38 which says that in case an entity is not able to decide the useful life, or in case an entity is not able to determine the useful life of an intangible asset, because of whatever factors, they can say that the useful life is indefinite, not infinite. Please remember, indefinite. Coal India has got a technology today for reducing the cost of coal manufacturing, coal mining. Considering all this economic, environment thing, ESG standards, all what is happening, they have developed some technology in-house. Extremely powerful technology. Intangible asset in the books of Coal India. They probably spend some money on R&D and all, and they get this asset as a, they are able to capitalize as an intangible asset in their books of account. But Coal India is not aware today how much they should prescribe for the useful life of this asset because they don't know if the technology will last for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. It may change in 1 year. It may not change for the next 10 years. Indefinite. Not infinite, indefinite. So Coal India will go and say that, look, we have got this R&D expenditure, we spent so much of money on this intangible asset. We are capitalizing it, but we do not know what is its useful life today. Many people have questioned this, saying that it does not reflect use of the asset. See, for a property, plant and equipment, even a flux of time will create a depreciation impact. I may just keep an asset there. It will still suffer because of wind, rain, all those things will come. It will still suffer depreciation. May not be in the case of intangible asset because we are not able to identify them in tangible terms. Therefore, they can have indefinite useful. The feeling which many participants will be getting now is that Ind AS gives us a lot of freedom. And the answer to that is definitely yes. Ind AS definitely gives us a lot of freedom. So does that mean to say we can do whatever you want with Ind AS? The answer is no for that because everything you have to report financially, you can, the aggression or the lot of options given are there, but you will also have to give a disclosure. So it is not so simple as just trying to, change the useful life every year just for the purpose of profit maximization and all those things. All those things are possible in Ind AS, but we should remember that the Ind AS standards are a very aggressive set of accounting standards. A lot of estimates and judgments are there. There are a lot of estimates and judgments. In fact, many of you who are probably not in industry, many of you who are in practice would find that Ind AS audits take a lot of time these days. It is no longer a question of just discussion and MRL and all those things. Whether it is a statutory auditor or whether it is a C&AG auditor, Ind AS audits are taking a lot of time because the nature of those estimates also are that only. Each person can have his own judgment on a transaction. So that is why it's become important for us to understand that those audits will take time. Impairment of assets is a standard which all of us know is there, We know that the standard is there. We know the standard has to be implemented also. But somehow it has not got the, I should not say recognition, but importance which is due. In the present day and age of all this happening, second wave, third wave, COVID and all, impairment standards become very, very, very important to definitely implement. I will not talk about the calculation of impairment loss. I will not talk about the calculation of impairment loss because there is only one Excel sheet away. You know the carrying value. You know the recoverable value to be higher of fair value or value in use. Value in use is nothing but your DCF technique. If the carrying value is more than a recoverable value, that difference is an impairment. But the most important part of the impairment standard is the timing of the impairment. And for this, I think the management is obviously responsible for identifying those indicators of impairment. A good indicator can be COVID itself or the impact of COVID. But more importantly, the timing of impairment is one thing. The moment we try to recognize an impairment loss, many thoughts will come to our mind. Will I get a tax benefit? My profit is going to fall down. I'm still going to pay more tax. Should I do it this year? Can I push it to the next year? Oh, my God may go off next year. I may have better income next year. Why don't we postpone it to the next year? Many of these things will come to us because we should not forget the fact that impairment loss may reduce my profit drastically, but I may still have to pay a tax because ICDS has not spoken anything about impairment as we are speaking today. There could be issues there also. In the AS 1115, I already discussed with you all what is called as revenue from contracts with customers, performance obligation, variable consideration. In many of the PSU undertakings, we would be having many of these concepts of performance obligations. For example, a simple warranty obligation, a performance warranty, not an assurance warranty. Performance warranty means you actually go and do a servicing. Can meet the definition of a performance obligation. But the important thing for a PSU undertaking is to identify in a contract what are the performance obligations. Of course, many of us have already transitioned to 115, so we sort of pretty much know what are the performance obligations which a typical thing will have. We'll probably be having, as I said, warranty is a very important, very popular example of performance obligation. Similarly, upkeep and maintenance. Many of those services provided can also be a performance obligation. A very popular question comes up in PSU undertakings is, does LD also constitute a performance obligation, liquidated damages? Because you are going to, sort of get a reduction in the contract value or going to pay a damage because of certain performance conditions not being met. In my opinion, LD is not a performance obligation because it is event based. All the remaining performance obligations like warranty are service based. That difference is very important. LD is nothing but event based transaction. If that does not happen, then I'll have to suffer a damage. So it will not be an obligation in a part, it is only an event based transaction. So I would feel that an LD is not coming under the definition of a performance obligation. In AS 116, all of you are pretty much aware of. A very interesting question came up before the chairman of the International Accounting Standards Board. See, when this standard was being drafted, IFRS 16, we know about the previous concept of leases. Very simple. Operating lease, finance lease. Operating lease expense, finance lease show it as asset. It was pretty simple. Also because the, conditions, operating lease was never defined. It was defined negatively actually. Whatever is not a finance lease becomes an operating lease. Many of those conditions were difficult to sort of, meet the definition of a finance lease. Present value of lease payments equal to fair value one. Is it possible that we can have
Recording is on.
it was not coming in the balance sheet. So his explanation for creating the standard was the fact that assets should appear in the balance sheet. They may not meet the definition of property, plant and equipment. They may not meet the definition of investment property. They may not meet the definition of non-current asset held for sale. But they meet the definition of something called as I have a right to use that asset. That is why he said, now you can see all your Emirates, Lufthansa are showing right of use asset means value of their aircraft, present value of all their aircraft. At least their balance sheet is coming in some form. As far as an accounting standard concept is concerned, maybe this is okay. This is fine. Okay, because we understand that, okay, there's a concept of right of use and we have to capitalize and depreciate. But there are two places where entities could have some problems with 116. The first place I can think of is your banker. Is he going to fund you this asset? Is he going to give you a loan as he would give for a normal term loan for a plant and machinery? Because he is always going under the impression that the asset belongs to you. Not in the case of an ROU asset. So if a banker looks at the balance sheet and finds a ROU asset of 25 crores of rupees, he should not be tempted into thinking that this company has purchased assets worth 25 crores of rupees. He should understand that this is nothing but right of use, lease. What was previously being expensed is right now being capitalized. And of course, depreciation is being charged on the right of use asset. This is the first problem I can think of. So bankers would have to be spoken to. Bankers would have to be told that this is why ROU asset has come into place. The second place where I expect some problem, income tax department in particular. Because again, ICDS, we have some 10 ICDS, they are very, very small in nature. They have not thought of this concept. I believe there's a draft which is going around for leases. It is still not coming around. We don't know what is in the draft. There are plenty of issues there in the implementation of that ICDS standard. We can do one thing as an entity. Without wanting to invite any sort of a controversy, disallow the depreciation in your computation of income as per ROU asset and claim normal operating lease expenditure as a deduction. What you were doing under the previous standard of IND AS 17 on leases, continue doing it here. Do not even get into a discussion whether this is permitted or not. Because the tax department is going to religiously follow ICDS. And in the lack of an ICDS, they say, please refer to the Income Tax Act. If there's a specific ICDS which is lacking for a transaction, they say, please refer to the Income Tax Act. The Income Tax Act also is silent on this. So I think that's one more area where we could have some small, problems in the interpretations. Of course, the taxation aspect is a larger issue, shall I say. It's the larger issue of, generally Ind AS itself is creating problems, but in particular, because in some PSUs, these items can be pretty large in nature. You could have huge right of use assets. That's why I said the unique nature of PSU undertakings is that they do a lot of sharing of assets with each other. You may be laying a pipeline to take it to the sea or to the port. It may go into some other PSU's territory. He may say, give me a right of use charge for this. Does that become an asset? It may become a lease here because right of use asset. So identification of that lease, creation of right of use asset and a lease liability is a very important aspect of this particular standard. Of course, as all the participants will probably be aware, thanks to the impact of COVID, the ICAI, along with, of course, erstwhile, earlier the IASB did it and then now the ICAI has done it. Any reduction in the lease rentals because of the impact of COVID would not change your ROU asset or lease liability. It will be a debit to the P&L account. This is one relaxation they have given just for the transition to, just for the COVID impact, wherein any concession is given. Suppose your landlord says, okay, do not pay me rent for 6 months. COVID is there because you're not occupied the office. Again, if you look at the calculation of the lease liability, right of use asset, we actually did a calculation. Present value of cash flows. Here there's no rent outflow at all because he's given you a waiver. He has given you a concession. So it does not matter. Standard says that whatever is the impact of that, you show it as a income, show it in the P&L account. So you could have a possible, non-payment of rent. On the other hand, the waiver will also come as a, you can't debit rent to the P&L account. You can show either an income or net it off and show it as a net expenditure. There will be no debit to the P&L account for rent for this. Similarly, there will be no right of use asset or lease liability because of this. Government grants I told you all about is very, very important from the part of PSU undertakings. Now we all know that this capital approach means government grants which are specific for assets. Government grants which are specific for assets can be reduced from the value of that asset and depreciation claimed on the net value. Government grants which are not for assets would have to follow the income approach. Income approach which means that it is shown as income over the grant period. Income over the grant period. Now one question which definitely comes up is the fact that, and I think this is something which all of us are, definitely, at least from the point of view of accountants and auditors, this is something we definitely have to identify. What is the grant period? See, normally what happens? The letter will have the grant period. The grant letter will have the grant period. But because Ind AS 20 says that over the grant period, you cannot get a grant which does not mention a specific grant period. We have seen grants given from the government. For example, for one entity, they just gave a simple grant of 1,000 crores and said, grant is given for improvement of balance sheet. No grant period was given there. Now, these are dangerous clauses because the improvement of balance sheet means we know exactly what is to be done to improve the balance sheet. Entire amount can be considered to be income in year one itself. Income means income tax. If you pay a 25% income tax, your grant is effectively become 75%. So one important factor we should definitely bear in mind at the time of accounting itself. At the time of accounting itself, one important factor we have to bear in mind is that grant period should be mentioned in the grant letter. Any of these approaches are permitted. It would be driven by the accounting policy of the entity. It could also be driven by past practice. Entity in the past may have had a practice or a habit of, either capitalizing it or getting, only asset-specific grants. It is possible that these things could have happened, but that would be determining what is going to be your accounting policy for those particular transactions. I told you all about Ind AS 114. I will just tell you about this in brief, because don't worry about the wordings, which are the full words which are given in the PowerPoint. They are talking about a rate regulator. Say, for example, fertilizer companies in India. You look at fertilizer companies in India, they don't have the option. They don't have the option to fix the rates themselves. It can't be market driven. The government would intervene and say that TRAI, telecom, it's called TRAI because they regulate telecom rates also in the country. So these regulators have the power to mandate rate regulation for entities. Now, the moment we say that they are able to mandate rate regulation, we would also have to think of the fact that it is possible that this rate is fixed on, say for example, total expenditure incurred. You may have a rate based on total expense. Say, for example, a fertilizer company or a telecom company may have total expenditure incurred. On that basis, the government will fix the rate. It could be a proportion to the expenditure. It could be a formula based on the expenditure. Entities that are subject to rate regulation capitalize and defer expenditures. Normally, the non-regulated entities would recognize as expenditure. Income that non-regulated entities would recognize in the statement of profit and loss account. Regulatory assets and regulatory liabilities, they are called. Ind AS 114. The balance of any expense or income account that would not be recognized as an asset or liability in accordance with other standards, but that qualifies for deferral because it is included or expected to be included by the rate regulator in establishing the rate that can be charged to the customers. Let us take an example of TRA only. Or you can also take the example of a fertilizer company, any of these entities. All of you all are probably aware that telecom rates, why do you think Airtel is not so frequently increasing their rates to customers? Or their, the so-called call rates. Why do you think they're not doing it? Why do you think that, any of your other companies are not changing their rates so frequently? Because see, typically speaking, what will happen, if at all, ma'am, of course, we can for a moment, not get into the conversation about Jio and all, because that also had an impact on the pricing. When Jio went ahead with this particular pricing initially, Airtel and Vodafone or whoever else were there in the market could have probably done the same. They could not do it because of a regulator. So let us say, for example, in a typical case, they have something called as ARPU, average revenue per unit. Let us say, for example, that government says that, okay, you can charge on an average this much per call. X amount. But they also say that you are permitted to increase it because I am going to give you this benefit here. From 2022 December onwards, you can charge a newer rate. That difference will obviously be coming to you from the 2023 year onwards. That difference can be recognized as a regulatory deferral balance account because it is a receivable. I will not use the word called as receivable strictly because it is a balance which the government is going to pay in the nature of a receivable. It is not a trade receivable because it is a specific receivable from a regulator. I think this we will have to understand very clearly. But one of the problems in Ind AS 114 is that I do not know whether this is coming by omission, by mistake or what, I do not know. They have said that for the first Ind AS financial statements, an entity shall apply the standard if it conducts rate regulated activities, which is fine. This is the general nature of your first time adoption. You can recognize that difference, whatever is receivable as a regulatory deference balance there. For subsequent Ind AS financials, please read the wordings here very carefully. It could have also applied to many participants here because we know at least 2 or 3 companies have suffered because of this clause. For subsequent Ind AS financial statements, they will apply this standard only if they have done so in their first Ind AS financial statements. I went over to Ind AS in 2017. I did not worry too much about the standard because I thought, what is the standard? It doesn't matter at all. It may not apply to us also. I completely ignored it. The consultant who implemented Ind AS for me also and my office also completely indicated. He said, okay, this is not applicable to you at all. So both of us omitted it. Now we have got new consultant. New consultant is saying, you can show this as regulatory difference balance because that rate regulator is there. You are getting a receivable. You can show it as a regulatory difference balance. If you have not done so in 2017 or 15 when you all went over to Ind AS, you cannot do so now. This is a restriction imposed on the standard saying that if you had not recognized the regulatory differential balances in 2017, you can't do it now. As I said, I know at least 2 or 3 companies wherein this has happened. And this has also created a problem with the CNDG. Because the CNDG is saying, no, see, you should show it as regulatory differential balance in some cases. But we are telling them we missed out on this, so we cannot show it now here. The solution to me would be that I think this requirement has to be removed by amending 114 itself. It is not about the CND, it is not about the entity. A lot of such interpretational issues would have cropped up during the implementation of Ind AS. This is just only one example. If an entity wants to show a rate regulation asset in their financial statements, standard should not prevent us from doing so by saying that only if you have done it in the past, you can do it now. This is a problem which we'll have to worry about. Because this is a very unique type of standard, it gives us an exemption from Ind AS 8 in selecting accounting policies. All of you are probably aware what Ind AS 8 says. When a specific accounting standard applies to a transaction, please apply that accounting standard itself. Financial instruments apply Ind AS 109. But only in the case of regulatory deferral assets, you need not have an accounting policy because Ind AS 114 is taking care of it. So they are saying don't worry about Ind AS 8 and all. Have a proper accounting standard only for regulatory deferral balances. Restatement is always an option in Ind AS. Any errors in the notice can always be reset in Ind AS as per Ind AS 8. But somehow the word called as restatement is a negative word, shall I say. It's taken negatively in Ind AS. People do not, normally say restatement, something wrong has happened. So many cases we have seen wherein some small errors at the time of first time implementation, noticed later on, always a debate. Should I restate? Should I not restate? But we have normally said that the definition of a restatement or definition of a prior period error as per Ind AS 8 is failure to use or misuse of reliable financial information which they had. Failure to use or misuse of reliable financial information. It is going to be very difficult to prove that this was either one of those things. Failure to use or misuse of financial information. Because you are going to say, look, I depended on a consultant. They came and gave me this project. I do not know what is to be done. 114, how do I know about it? He was supposed to know about it. So it may be a little bit difficult to argue that. So my suggestion would be that please amend this requirement, because it is going to be very difficult for entities who would like to reflect regulatory assets in their financial statements. It will be very difficult for them not to implement it because of this restriction here. What you would do, there will be a separate line item called regulatory deferred assets balance. Again, you can remember here that even in presentation, the purpose of holding an asset would determine its presentation here. You would not have to classify regulatory deferral balances into current and non-current. This is an overall feature of the entire balance sheet, but only for regulatory deferral balances, the standard gives a specific exemption not to classify them into current and non-current classifications. I've already spoken to you all a bit about 109. I will only emphasize on one point here. It's what is called as the ECL model. ECL means expected credit loss model. Especially for trade receivables, especially for PSU undertakings, this is very, very important. We have moved away from the incurred loss model, waiting for a bad debt to happen, event-based bad debt to happen. No. Here we are going forward-looking. And for trade receivables, Ind AS 109 says that you can give a provision for expected credit loss based on what is called as lifetime credit losses method, simplified provision matrix. Provision matrix on the basis of aging. The more or the longer the asset is there in your books of account, the longer the trade receivable is there in your books of account, you may have to think of providing more. So what is going to happen in Ind AS 109 impairment model, ECL model, is going to be the fact that amount of provision for patent outlets is going to increase both in quantity and also it is going to be earlier in its recognition. It is going to be earlier in recognition. You will have, because you are not going to wait for the event to happen here again. Let us say that you have taken out 10 years of history. You are working for this, BHEL or any of these PSUs. You have taken out 10 years of trade receivables history. And you find that on an average, trade receivable which is due more than 365 days, 1 year. Any trade receivable more than 365 days, 1 year, you normally get only about 70% of the trade receivable, which means 30% is actually written off. I mean, the entire population of your trade receivables and all this I'm saying. Using this as a basis, you all are going to create a provision for that 70%. Sorry, for the 30%, not for the 70%. Provision for patent doubtful debts is going to be faster and also higher in amount in Ind AS. Having come to that, before we close, we will take up. I'll discuss a couple of issues. The first issue which I've got is income tax, and I've just put a question mark here. I've not answered anything here because the impact of Ind AS on income tax is going to be significant. I think this is an understatement. Because as per Ind AS 115, you are going to defer your revenue. As per performance obligations to be performed later on. As per Ind AS 109, security deposit, you are going to discount to present value. There will be an interest there. As per Ind AS 109, employee advances given at 8%, the market rate is 10%, you are going to put the differential to employee benefits. There are going to be a lot of notional entries coming up in Ind AS. There are a lot of notional entries coming up in Ind AS. A question definitely is going to be, how will this be seen from the perspective of income tax? I've hinted upon this a little bit in my previous slides, but if you look at your entire Ind AS financial statements, it will consist of a lot of notional entries. Fair valuation will be there. Unrealized fair valuation will be there. All these things are what is called as notional entries. One simple solution would be that in your computation of income, please remove or add these notional entries to the offer it for taxation or do not offer it for taxation, depending upon where it is placed, debit or credit. That will be a very simple interpretation because you don't have to worry about taxation at all. Don't even claim it for taxation purpose. But there can be other areas also. Say, for example, provision for bad and doubtful debts. ECL model is coming now. ECL model implementation means immediately P&L account only. Impairment losses will debit to P&L account. Very clear guidance given in the standard. What happens to that? Can you claim it within the four corners of income tax? Do you want to claim it? Maybe the answer is yes. Unfortunately, as I have said earlier, the ICDS standards do not help us here at all. Because of the fact that ICDS has been based on the previous version of accounting standards, not Ind AS at all. So there is a lot of disconnect between ICDS and Ind AS. They are not covering the entire length, entire Ind AS standards also. So that disconnect is going to be there. This is a battle we'll have to fight. There is no option but to fight this battle. Now, especially in this era of faceless, nameless, whatever assessment, we do not know what is going to happen. Does that income tax person who was doing my assessment really know about Ind AS 115? Maybe not. Does he know about the debit to my P&L account for impairment allowances? Again, the answer is maybe not, maybe yes. On the flip side, I can also tell this works the other way also. It may be a huge impairment loss which you have claimed, not on the face of the P&L account, but it has gone into your some schedule down the below which nobody can see. It may pass off also as per income tax because he may not be able to read through it. So this works both ways. We will have to see what is beneficial for us, because I would personally think that the tax department should come out with a more detailed set of guidelines for income tax for Ind AS. The second thing we are going to face is going to be these audit comments from the CNDG. And I'm quite sure that many of you have already faced it. Now, the CNDG department has had an active program of trying to learn Ind AS standards, and to a large extent they have also. To a large extent they have also learned about it. But we have had a couple of interactions with them wherein they have not understood the standard. They have not understood the standard, but still want to sort of comment upon it, which is completely understandable, because the standards, for example, financial instruments, you can have your own interpretation of this. They've asked us to get opinions. They've asked us to go back to the ICAI for opinions. In some cases, they have taken one financial report or some audit report and said, please repeat the same clauses here. All of you all who are in PSUs would prefer to get a nil report. We do understand that. That's the ultimate aim of having this PSU audit being and CNDG audit being done. But for which I think your documentation, reason for taking a particular stance, that becomes very important. So, maintaining a trail of why certain decisions have been taken are very important.
Recording is
I
on.
think a lot of these disclosures work in that particular manner, as detailed as possible. The only request I have got for those working in financial reporting of PSUs is that you all may want to look at ideal disclosures of companies like Shell, British Petroleum, Mindtree, Infosys, and all those companies. And many of those companies have given absolutely brilliant disclosures, no doubt about it at all. But still, please try to make the disclosure entity specific. The challenges which Coal India has got may not be there in Shell. The challenges which Bharat Heavy Electricals has got may not be there in Infosys. So please try and make your disclosures entity specific. It's only a template. You're going to building up a template. Make up this template for disclosures, make it entity specific. Ensure that whatever the user of the financial statements has to know is there in your disclosures. I'll give you a small example before I complete. Say, for example, revenue recognition. Everybody was previously using the accounting policy. Revenue is recognized on transfer of significant risk and reward. Very good. Now they are saying revenue is recognized when control asset is transferred to the customer. You may want to go one step ahead and say that what is that event? What is that transaction? What is that point at which control is being transferred? You can say on shipment, on delivery, on acceptance, on installation, on commissioning, whatever you want, you can say. That is what I think is required. And I think that is what also Ind AS is looking forward to give you all better financial reporting so that the user is able to understand that this is what is going to happen. On that note, I would like to conclude my presentation. Again, thanks again to the Dhanbad branch. Thanks to the committee also and everybody else. Pratik ji, thank you very much. I am sure that all of you are waiting to hear from Gagan on a more important topic, which is amendments to GST. So thank you very much. Over to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for the wonderful session. Over to Rahul.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for your wonderful session. And we would like to now welcome Sir CS Sunil Mehta, sir, from CFO of CIL. And I would like to give a brief introduction about him. That he has joined the Coal India Limited, headquarter Kolkata in 2013 on promotion to Chief Manager Finance, and served in marketing and sales department, covering aspects such as MIS reporting, preparation of FSA, pricing of coal regulation and ROSO. He had been in Bharat Coking Coal Limited from 1995 to 2013 in headquarters and 1989 to 1995 in Munidi project. He has the education from BCom of St. Xavier Ranchi in the batch 1981 to 1984. Now, I would like to request CS Sunil Mehta, sir, to say a few words. Is sir connected online?
Yeah, sir, I think is connected, but maybe he may be facing any issue, I think. Let us move forward, Sunil. Rahul? We have Anurag Singhalji with us from SAIL, the Steel Authorities of India, Bokaro. We will request him to please share his welcome address for the second session. Anurag ji? Yeah.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Pratik ji and Rahul ji, for organizing this seminar. Both the topics are very important and useful for PSUs like SAIL. Though, am I audible? Hello. Hello.
Yes, Anurag, you are audible. You can go ahead.
Okay. First of all, already I joined late because I was having a meeting regarding Q3 finalization. Regarding Ind AS, however, it was applicable from 2016-17 for all listed companies, but SAIL was having a turnover of around 60,000 crore at that time also. So applicability of different Ind AS was never an issue for SAIL. but to apply each and every Ind AS in its true sense and its true interpretation was a big challenge for us. Because it was a long journey from GAP to AS, then to Ind AS, and we have converged from IAS to and as well as from IFRS. So the applicability of different Ind AS, like in property, plant and equipment, it was bought ki it was a challenge ki each major repair and each store item has to be capitalized. So for a company like SAIL, where lakhs of transactions was there, so to capitalize each repair and to capitalize each store item cannot be practically possible. So to overcome such type of issues, like SAIL decided that if repair was above 50 lakhs, then we will capitalize it. If a store item is more than 10 lakhs, then we will capitalize it. That was an internal policy which a call SAIL has taken to implement the Ind AS. Again, like Ind AS on leases, we came down from debating between operational and financial lease now to ROU assets. So bridging a gap of interpretation between the auditors and the auditee was always a challenge in SAIL. So with this, I request Gagan ji, Pratik ji, that I should hand over the seminar session to Shri Gagan Kedia ji, who is having a vast experience in GST, and the session will be beneficial for all the participants. With this, I think Mr. Gagan Kedia ji should hand over take the session. Thank you.
Sir, before Gaganji takes the session, I would just like to request CS Sunil Mehta sir, who is present from Coal India headquarters and is presently the CFO of Coal India. So over to Sunil Mehta ji.
Thank you, Pratik. Pratik Ganirwal, Chairman, Dhanbad Branch. My pleasure that I was also Chairman of Dhanbad Branch in 2011. So any person from Dhanbad, whenever I interact, looks like that I am talking by छोटे भाई की तरह सब लोग से बात करते वही फील होता है. I have spent 25 years in Dhanbad. So I first give my best wishes to Pratik, who has organized this program especially for PSU on GST and IND AS. I'm forgetting the name, Anurag Singhal from SAIL, I think, who has spoken just before me. Anurag ji.
Yes, sir.
So Anurag ji has covered many things about PSU in his speech regarding GST and IND AS, because SAIL and Coal India both are listed company. Coal India is a very big company, a Marathon company, and SAIL is also now performing very well in terms of profit, in terms of market capitalization. So I want to only add two things in GST and IND AS, especially for coal mining industry. In GST, Coal India, if you see the accounts of Coal India, you will see 7,300 crore is lying as input tax credit receivable. That is very big amount. And we are unable to utilize this input tax credit only due to inverted duty structure, because GST on coal is only 5%, and our inputs services, input goods, we pay around 18% to 28%. So since 2017, 1st July, when GST was implemented, and this ITC is accumulated day by day. One special thing is happening in Coal India, that we have to pay 18% reverse charge, GST reverse charge on royalty. Royalty is around 14%, and also 30% of royalty as DMF, District Mineral Fund, and NAMT, that is 3% of royalty. So this amount we pay around 18% and we recover only 5% from customers. So there is a huge accumulation. At this juncture, on 30th September 2021, our balance is around 7,300 crore. And auditors are always asking when you will get refund or you reverse the entry. If you reverse the entry, it will impact our profit and loss account. And we are unable to refund from our GST authorities because opinion on this. So this will be, I think, our learned speaker will definitely speak on that topic in this session. And the second about India's. Our Coal India is a coal extracting company, and we remove OBR before digging a hole, before extracting of coal. So OBR issue, the accounting of OBR is one of the special issue that we are taking. We are taking this matter. We have taken this matter with Indian Accounting Standard Board. How to make accounting of OBR, because there is no clear-cut instruction in Index 16. Some instruction has been given, but what Coal India do various analysis of OBR accounting that is not covered under Indian Index 16, and this matter is litigated by Income Tax Department and other department. But one happy things I want to share that CAG and our statutory auditors are agreeing what the guidelines and we are following in Coal India on OBR account. Last month we have a meeting with the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India with Chairman ASB that please make clarification or our inputs in India's 16. So the issues which Coal India is facing on GST and Index. The rest, the listed company, we have to comply all the Index and GST. So we pay around GST 6,000, around 24,000 crore. So we are huge exchequer payment to the government of India. So thank you, Pratik, for organizing this special seminar, and that will benefit the finance executive working in Coal India, in SAIL, and other PSU. I wish all the best to Dhanbad branch and the committee of CICA for organizing this seminar. Thank you, Pratik.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to give a brief introduction about our next speaker, Gagan Kedia, sir. He is a tax analyst and management consultant and corporate trainer, offering over 10 years of post-qualification experience in the field of indirect tax consultancy, litigation management, and due diligence support, and has worked with Deloitte, Haskins & Sells, and catering tax advisory and litigation needs of global retail conglomerates and IT giants. Now, I would like to call upon Gagan Kedia, sir, to address the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Rahul. At the onset, let me also thank Mehta sir for gracing us and giving his insights on a very important topic of inverted duty structure refund. I'll be deliberating upon that. And I would also like to thank CA Pratik, Chairman Dhanbad branch, for giving me the opportunity and organizing such a good session. So the topic that was allotted to me was on recent changes in GST. But I always have this question in GST, what do I call recent? Okay, just one clarification. Is my screen visible?
It is visible.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I always have this question. What is recent in GST? हम recent किसको बोलते हैं? एक दिन, एक हफ्ता, एक महीना. What is that? What is recent in GST? Because I think there is some changes on an average, like on a weekly basis, there are certain changes that is coming, right? So I've tried to capture certain changes which are more relevant in our day-to-day operations. and there are certain changes which is affecting the business decision making process as well. So quickly, 3 again confirmations. My screen is visible. Yes. My
Yes,
voice is
yes.
audible.
Yeah.
Perfect. Correct. So what I
Gaganji,
will do is,
we'll just pause you for a minute. We
okay.
have the chairman of our committee, P.A. Hansrajji, with us. We will request him to, sir, please address the gathering. Sir, over to you, sir. Sir,
Yeah, thank you very much. At the outset, I'm very grateful and thankful to the Dhanbad branch for joining hands with the ICI through this committee, committee for members in industry and business. You see, like the speakers have their own role to play, and the organizers, the branches, and definitely the committee has its own role to play. And I really appreciate the subject which is of the need of the hour, whether the GST applicability and the IND AS in the time to come, more focusing on the public sector undertaking. And fortunately, this program is being organized from the dignitaries from the public sectors. I can see Sunil Mehtaji, also the CFO of the Coal India. Naturally, though we are a good friend, and this program may be.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Face to face देख रहे हैं, but on camera only.
वही मैं कहने वाला था कि फिजिकल कब देखेंगे ये पता नहीं, लेकिन हमारी इच्छा रहती है कि चलो एनीवे फिजिकली नहीं तो वर्चुअली तो एक दूसरे को समझ पाए, एक दूसरे को देख पाए.
हाँ सर, नॉलेज शेयरिंग तो चलेगा ही और करना ही है हम लोगों को.
नहीं, आप लोगों के लिए जो है मैं बता दूं, दिस कमेटी इज मोर फोकस्ड, ऑलवेज फोकस्ड ऑन दी कॉर्पोरेट्स. एंड आपको शायद जानकारी होगी, हमारे पास एक हमने स्कोप के साथ जो आपका जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है स्कोप, उसके साथ एक MOU साइन करने वाले हैं, जिसके द्वारा हमने पब्लिक सेक्टर अंडरटेकिंग को फोकस किया है कि ऑल अक्रॉस इंडिया, वेदर इट इज द स्टेट पब्लिक सेक्टर अंडरटेकिंग और द सेंट्रल PSUs, उनको कैसे बेटर सर्व कर पाए एट द लेवल ऑफ द ICI. This committee has taken an initiative for doing so. And today, naturally, I really appreciate Dhanbad branch of the CIRC has brought us closer to the public sector undertakings, and the speakers, both of them have made it happen. R. Mohanji and the Gagan Kedia also, they are with us. The team at the Dhanbad branch is kind enough to conceive these kind of program. I congratulate them up and hope the relationship with the corporate will further grow with in the different, not only the metro city only. Normally focus goes with the metro cities, but the smaller places also, where the members are there with the industry and business, because there is a high need to cater them up. And it is not like general subjects, the specific requirement of that particular industry also. In our committee, we have the different, we are forming a different groups also on these sector specific areas. If you can develop some kind of that concept also in your coal sectors or the different sectors, so that will be a support to the committee also, and naturally members, those who are serving into the different areas. So I'll simply make a request to the branch to further strengthen the relationship with the public sector undertakings and the other corporates also, so that this serving to the fraternity and serving to the corporate worlds for the growth as a growth engine or the contributor for the growth of the economy. This committee is more focused for the member in industry. I wish to point out a lot of innovative steps are required in the current time, because it is through the technology we can come closer. Sitting at all across the world, we can find out different speakers of the relevancy. It is not like earlier it used to be a limitation of physical visits. Now virtually I can see so many dignitaries, so many friends from the branch, so many speakers and so many personalities around us. So that is a technology has brought us together. So that with that kind of process, we can bring more closer to each other. We can find out the best of the speakers from the globe, not only limiting to our country, but from the developed countries also, like some speakers, if you want, from the USA, that can also be there with you. Some from the other part of the countries, wherever, like Australia, wherever you have the relevance of the subjects, so that this committee can help you out in doing so also. So with that kind of strength, we can bring out the strength of the members. And in the past also, I can see like organizers has a different role to play. The speakers are well convergent. They have the different role to play because they are the resource person. They are the strength for the organizers. And same way dignitaries and the participants, they have their own role to play in the system. I wish this journey has been taken forward. I think this may be the last session of the day, or I do not know. But in the morning I was busy in some other meeting, so I could not join in the initial inaugural time. So then I thought of let me at least have a small words with each one of you, and I assure to the branch and to all my members. Your ICI is always at your step further, just a call away. Whenever you need any committee or particularly the member in industry and business, we are always there to serve. With these words, I am very grateful and thankful to each one of you for listening patiently. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words. Sir, I would like to just share with you that I am also member. I also belong to member from industry, sir.
Yeah, I know.
I am from Coal India itself. What Sunil Mehta sir was saying, I was very much relevant with that. The GST problems we are also facing in our subsidiary Bharat Coking Coal Limited, Dhanbad. And the speaker for the day, Gagan Kedia ji, is a regular faculty with us who come down to Dhanbad and takes a seminar. So we can just say we are good friends. And Sunil Mehta sir is our senior and he guides us in all the programs and activity. We always have his support. And Anurag Singhal ji has been, you can say, he's been the inspiration for this program. Because in the December we had a discussion that we wanted to organize a program, but due to some compliance at ICI level, for 12 days we couldn't have the CP program because we couldn't get a CP approval for that. So this program is scheduled in January. So this was just you can say this is a initiative of Bokaro that we have conducted this program with the SAIL and Coal India. So we will be looking forward for your support, sir, for future for having good participations and programs for member industry also in other, not in this seminar, not in this topic, but in other topics such as courses, in different courses we can organize for the members in industries like in Excel or SAP or anything like that. So sir, without taking any more time, now I will hand over the session to Gaganji because I think thousands of participants are waiting to listen to our keynote speaker Gaganji. Over to you, Gaganji.
थैंक यू प्रतीक जी. राइटली मेंशनड, धनबाद से मेरा एक बहुत पुराना कनेक्शन भी है, मेरा ननिहाल भी है और मैं बहुत एंजॉय करता हूँ धनबाद में आके आप लोगों से इंटरेक्ट जब मैं करता हूँ. तो और इसी नोट के साथ and I'll take blessings from all my seniors and colleagues. I'll start whatever is the topic. I'll go slow. I'll touch upon some topics in detail and certain topics I'll just brush up. We'll have question and answer session. वो अपन अच्छे से रखेंगे. जो भी आपके क्वेरीज आप चैट बॉक्स में जरूर से डाल के रखें. अभी डाल दीजिए, जब आ रहे हैं ना डाल दीजिए. लास्ट के लिए मत वेट करिएगा. So we'll start. We will see कि there are certain aspects what we will be touching. हम लोग सबसे पहले ITC मैचिंग के बारे में देखेंगे जिसके ऊपर में कानून अभी बन गया है, इसके ऊपर में डिटेल में समझेंगे. GSTR 1 के कारण हमारी ब्लॉकिंग हो रही है. सेल्फ असेसमेंट टैक्स के ऊपर में क्या कानून आ रहा है. रिकवरी प्रोविजंस किस तरह से वाइडन हो रही है. प्रोविजनल अटैचमेंट्स, ई वेबल के कुछ रेस्ट्रिक्शंस है. बहुत सारे अदर अमेंडमेंट्स भी है. रिफंड्स को लेके है. आई विल ऑल्सो बी टॉकिंग अबाउट वन एस्पेक्ट आई थिंक रेलेवेंट फॉर स्टील इंडस्ट्री जहाँ पे इफ आई एम हैविंग एक्सपोर्ट्स आई क्लेम रिफंड, राइट, मेरे पास जो इनपुट्स आती है मैं उसका रिफंड लेता हूँ, बट देर इज एन अमाउंट ऑफ सेस जो मैं शायद कोल खरीदने पे देता हूँ, क्या वो मैं सेस का रिफंड ले रहा हूँ? इफ आई एम टेकिंग, व्हाट इज द क्वांटम ऑफ दैट रिफंड दैट आई एम टेकिंग? वी विल सी इनटू दैट, एंड देर आर सर्टन सेक्टर स्पेसिफिक अमेंडमेंट्स, म्यूचुअलिटी जो क्लब्स एंड एसोसिएशन के लिए है, पैसेंजर ट्रांसपोर्ट, रेस्टोरेंट सर्विसेज, governmental projects, this will touch in detail, so we will see on these things. Okay, ITC matching with 2B. देखिए ITC in the entire GST is, I would say, the most relevant angle as far as department is concerned. Even when we are doing audit or review or health check of any organization, I would say 50% of our time is spent on validating the ITC. Now there is one small angle in ITC validation which is matching. ये मैचिंग हमें किसके साथ करना है, क्यों करना है? कानून बोलता है अब 2B के साथ करने. So quickly I will say section 16 is one condition which tells you when you can take credit. What are the conditions you have to fulfill to take credit? 16.1 says you have to use, or it should be an intention to use for your business. Good. 16.2 says that you have to follow 1, 2, 3, 4 conditions. You should receive the goods, you should receive the invoice. Goods in transit की credit आप नहीं ले सकते जब तक goods physically नहीं मिलेगा, आप नहीं ले सकते. Bill भी मिलना जरूरी है, invoice okay. Then it says you should have filed your return, which is also okay. Then there is one condition 16.2C which says tax in respect of the supply should have been actually paid to the government. इसके ऊपर बाद में बात करेंगे. Now, what is 16.2AA? So 16.2AA is a new section introduced effective now from 1st Jan, which says that you have to do credit matching. It says you will get credit. जो invoice की हम बात करते हैं ना कि आपको invoice physically मिलनी चाहिए, that invoice or that debit note, you will get credit of that invoice only when it has been furnished by the supplier in his statement of outward supplies. 1 point. मतलब सामने वाले को GSTR 1 फाइल करना है, and such details have been communicated to the recipient of such invoice. So communication along with filing both is relevant. उसने फाइल कर दी, communicate नहीं हुआ, वो भी नहीं चलेगा. Correct? Now there were some disputes. What is communication? Is it GSTR 2A or GSTR 2B? Lot of confusions were there. Technically आप law के हिसाब से जाओगे तो communication is GSTR 2A only. 2B was just a statement prepared out of the data available with the government. But now they have clarified कि नहीं आपको 2B देखना है. My point, 2B and 2A will give you different figures. Why? 2B static है, उसमें updated figures नहीं आते हैं. 2A, even somebody is filing returns after the due date, वो 2A में दिखा देता है, 2B में अगले महीने दिखाता है. Lot of challenges है वहां पे. Correct. So before this law was there, what was it? I'll just quickly tell. So when the law started July 2017, from that date till October 2019, 8th October 2019, correct? Only 16.2C was the law which says that the tax should have been paid to the government. There was no other provision, no other restriction as far as input tax credit on invoices are concerned. 2A 2B देखने नहीं बोलता था. 9th October onwards till December 31st December 2020, there was a rule 36.4 which was there. It said whatever is there in your 2A initially now 2B. Initially they said that uska 120%, 20% plus you can claim if it is actually there with you. Then that 20% was reduced to 10%, then subsequently to 5. Currently it is 5%. You can claim. So but the rule was not powered by any act. किसी section से इसको power नहीं मिला हुआ था. तो बहुत सारी challenges थी. Section 43A कहता था इस बारे में, but वो Section 43A भी effective नहीं हुआ. तो एक rule है, but उसके पीछे उसका पापा नहीं खड़ा है, उसके पीछे उसका section नहीं है. तो ये बहुत challenging था. सरकार को भी ये realize हुआ. Then they came out with a section. 1st January 2021 को उन लोगों ने amendment करा. एक्ट में अमेंडमेंट करा 16.2AA. 16.2AA अभी नहीं आया, एक साल पहले आया था, लास्ट बजट में आया था, बट इट वॉज नॉट येट नोटिफाइड. नोटिफाई अभी हुआ है. करेक्ट. नाउ दे आर सेइंग दैट यू हैव टू लुक एट द कम्युनिकेशन एज वेल. नाउ द सेक्शन इज टेलिंग यू टू लुक एट द कम्युनिकेशन. करेक्ट. तो वी विल सी कि उस पर चैलेंजेस क्या आएगी. what will happen if the supplier is actually paying tax to the government? एकदम genuine transaction. I'm not talking about any fraudulent transactions. एकदम genuine transaction है. Supplier is paying tax to the government. There is some delay, some error in filing GSTR1. B2B की जगह B2C दिखा दिया. GST number में एक mismatch है. Because of which it is not communicated to you. And because it is not communicated to you, the section is not allowing you to take credit. Merely because it is not being communicated to you. So is it not that the department is doubly benefited? First, it is taking the tax from the seller, and then it is denying the credit, which is the essence of indirect tax, to give the credit of the previous step. That question is still not answered, that what will happen in the genuine cases. In genuine cases, catch them, I don't mind. What about genuine cases? No. Now, 16(2)(c, जो मैंने आपको बोला था ना कि टैक्स के पैसे दे देने चाहिए सरकार को, 3B फाइल करना is not a answer to it. 16(2)(c का, where it says that tax has to be actually paid, it doesn't make कि सामने वाले को 3B लगा देना है. 3B में भी तो वो फेक ITC ले सकता है ना, करेक्ट? या 3B में भी उसने कम टैक्स पे किया होगा, हाउ डू आई नो? करेक्ट. सो अब सेक्शन 16(2) में देयर आर 2 कंडीशंस. 16(2)AA, which in summary says कि आपके 2B में आपको दिखना चाहिए तो आपको क्रेडिट मिलेगा. 16(2)(c बोलता है that unless that person has actually paid it to the government, मतलब genuinely पे किया है, फेक ITC लेके नहीं हुआ है, तब तक आपको क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा. Now this 16(2)(c is something which we cannot check. Any person cannot check. There is no mechanism to check whether tax has actually been paid to the government. तो वो भी चैलेंज में अपना अलग चल रहा है 16(2)(c की constitutional validity, because something which is impossible cannot be mandated on me. मेरे को कुछ impossible करने के लिए नहीं mandate किया जा सकता. So there is fight between 16(2)AA and 16(2)(c, वो चल ही रहा है. Now what will happen if this communication, it says it has to be communicated. कम्युनिकेशन अगर मुझे 2 महीने बाद होता है, 6 महीने बाद होता है, 16(4) के टाइमलाइंस के बाद होता है, तो all those question and answers is still not answered. But now we have to understand that there is a law. Earlier we might be challenging that there is no law, so rule 36(4) not relevant. Now there is a law. Compliance होना चालू कर देना है, strict होना चालू कर देना है. आप many organizations, and if I would say about SAIL or Coal India, see, in any transaction, the buyer and seller, there are 2 parties. One always has an upper hand, right? Like if somebody is buying from SAIL or Coal India and he's just a regular trader, not a very big entity, then Coal India or SAIL can command the terms of transaction. वो commercial decisions होती है, right? So there are a lot of cases when I'm purchasing from somebody and for some reason, but I'm simply looking. So I'll give you one example. In one of our case, we got for one of our client, उसको सामने वाली एक MNC थी, उसने 3 साल का चिट्ठा निकाल के दिया, 4 साल का रादर, 18, 19, 19, 20, 20, 21, 21, 22. इन 4 साल में आपके GSTR 2A में हमें ये एंट्रीज की मिसमैच दिख रही है, आपके इन सारे बिल का GST अमाउंट का पैसा हमने रोक लिया है, क्लैरिफाई करो, तब तक हम पैसे रिलीज नहीं करेंगे. नाउ वी फाउंड आउट दैट हमने जिस डेट पे इनवॉइसेस दिया, हमने ठीक से अपलोड किया, द रिसीवर दैट MNC हैज रिकॉर्डेड एट इनवॉइस डेट प्लस 1 डेट इन हिज बिल, इन हिज बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स. तो अब उसके बुक्स में वो बिल लेटर से 25 जनवरी को दिख रही है, हमारे बुक्स में वो 24 जनवरी के डेट में है, विच इज करेक्ट, दे आर इन द इनवॉइस. नाउ बिकॉज ऑफ दिस ऑल्सो देयर इज अ मिसमैच, और उन्होंने भेज के हमारे पैसे रोक दिए. तो ये टाइप ऑफ बर्डन इन कंप्लायंस को हमें अवॉइड करना है to make the trade smooth, right? This we have discussed. Now, very interestingly, 16(2)AA tells only if it is communicated to you, I will give you the credit. Okay. Now remember section 37, 38, 39, initially जो सारे थे, 37 talks about my GSTR1, 38 talks about my GSTR2. So section 38 gives me the permission that if some transaction is missing, सामने वाले ने किसी कारण नहीं लगाया, तो वो मैं ऐड कर सकता था अपने GSTR2 लगाने के टाइम पे, एंड वो सामने वाले के पास जाता फॉर एक्सेप्टेंस और डिनाई. सो देयर वाज एन ऑप्शन फॉर जेन्युइन रिसिपिएंट्स टू डिक्लेयर द मिसिंग इनवॉइसेस एंड क्लेम दैट ITC. नाउ 16(2)AA इज नॉट टेकिंग केयर ऑफ दिस. 638 तो अभी भी है, पर 16(2) है बोलता है नहीं, तो एक ही चीज के ऊपर एक कानून बोलता है नहीं मिलेगा, एक कानून बोलता है मिल सकता है, तो हार्मोनियस कंस्ट्रक्शन कैन बी अडॉप्टेड. दिस शुड बी लुक्ड इनटू while any cases of mismatch of credits. And this was the legal maxim which I was talking about, lex non cogit ad impossibilia. Law cannot compel a man to do what he cannot possibly do. सामने वाले ने टैक्स पे किया कि नहीं किया is not easy for even the officers to check. सामने वाले ने R1 जो लगाया उसमें 3B लगाया, उसमें आईटीसी जेन्युइन है फेक है, हाउ कैन ही फाइंड आउट? फिर तो उसके सारे आईटीसी, मेरे वेंडर्स के सारे आईटीसी को चेक करना पड़ेगा, मेरे वेंडर्स के आईटीसी को चेक करना पड़ेगा. टेक्निकली नॉट पॉसिबल फॉर अ बिजनेसमैन. तो ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट लीगल मैक्सिम है एज फार एज टीबी एंड 2B क्रेडिट मिसमैचेस आर कंसर्न्ड. ओके, नाउ व्हाट इज द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैलिडिटी ऑफ मैचिंग प्रिंसिपल? टायरा बानो की हमारी सुप्रीम कोर्ट की एक बहुत फेमस जजमेंट है, वेयर द प्रिंसिपल हैज बीन इवॉल्व्ड दैट अ स्टैट्यूट कैन बी declared as invalid if the same is manifestly arbitrary. Correct? Something which is done excessively and disproportionate, such legislation would be manifestly arbitrary. ये सारे रैशनल आपको समझने हैं कि जो कानून 16(2) AA, all these conditions are good as far as you are trying to stop a fake ITC or a syndicate of fake ITC, right? But in principle, that should not be applied to each and every case. Supreme Court, I think yesterday there was some judgment, e-way bill mein, that any default in e-way bill should not be construed as a willful act. There has to be an element of mens rea, evasion of tax होना चाहिए, तभी आप e-way bill के defaults को penalize करो. तो ये points, lot of cases they are missing. Okay. There's again one judgment which says denial of ITC to a buyer of goods and services would tantamounting to treating both the guilty purchaser and the innocent purchaser at par. That's what I said. जो बदमाश है, it's okay for them, but innocent purchaser and guilty purchaser को आप at par कैसे treat करते हो? Where there are two different classes. The Article 14 of our Constitution says that you cannot discriminate between two persons. I agree, but then it says based on intelligible differentia. दो क्लास ऑफ पर्संस को आप डिस्टिंग्विश कर सकते हो, तभी तो हमारे पास आज रिजर्वेशंस है और ये सारी चीज है ना कि इनको ये मिलेगा इनको ये नहीं मिलेगा. देयर आर टू क्लासेस ऑफ पर्सन, सो इनोसेंट परचेजर एंड गिल्टी परचेजर्स को आप एक ट्रीटमेंट कर रहे हो. So that again can be, it will be challenged. It is already there. There was one more judgment which says that denial of ITC to buyer will severely impact working capital and therefore substantially diminishes ability to continue business. सुनील सर अभी बता रहे थे 7,300 करोड़ रुपए का मेरा आईटीसी फॉर सर्टेन टेक्निकल रीजंस नहीं आ रहा है. Charging that to PL account for that particular year will have a huge impact on the profitability, and not only once, that will trickle down to many other areas. Credit rating, share pricing, बहुत सारे चीजों पे, associated companies की share pricing, it has a very wide impact. So denial of ITC will severely impact working capital. Therefore, it is a serious affront on his right to carry on his trade. जो आर्टिकल 19 में राइट टू कैरी ऑन ट्रेड एंड बिजनेस की गारंटी हमें दी गई है, ये उसको भी वायलेट करता है. एंड ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट केस लॉ है दाइची कारकरिया का, सुप्रीम कोर्ट का, विच इज द डिनायल ऑफ आईटीसी फॉर डिफॉल्ट ऑफ द सप्लायर इज होली अनजस्टिफाइड एंड दिस कॉजेज डेप्रिवेशन ऑफ द एंजॉयमेंट ऑफ द प्रॉपर्टी. आईटीसी एक प्रॉपर्टी है मेरी, आईटीसी इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट मेरी एक राइट है, प्रॉपर्टी है, जिसको आप अनजस्टिफाइड वे में डिनाई कर रहे हो. करेक्ट. एंड दिस डिनायल मियरली बिकॉज सम प्रोसीजरल लैप्स के कारण अगर आपके 2B में नहीं दिख रहा है, इट क्लियरली फ्रस्ट्रेट्स द अंडरलाइंग ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ रिमूवल ऑफ कैस्केडिंग इफेक्ट. लाइक मैंने आपको बोला था ना, सप्लायर ने तो टैक्स सरकार को दे दिया, फिर भी अगर मुझे क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगी तो इट बिकम्स माई कॉस्ट. करेक्ट. तो दिस इज अगेंस्ट. ये सारे प्रिंसिपल्स को हमें ध्यान में रखना है. गगन, ये तो हो गया लिटिगेशंस के केस में. ऑपरेशनल केस में क्या करना है? मैं जब क्रेडिट ले रहा हूं, 3B फाइल कर रहा हूं, इफ देयर आर सर्टेन डिफरेंसेस, I cannot use these case laws to claim credit, right? Definitely you cannot, because you are not showing it to somebody. But ये basis आपको दिमाग में रखने हैं. There are a lot of reasons. ITC will be there in your 2B, but it will not be reflected in books. आप timely entries उसकी नहीं कर रहे हो. Manual checking. So second point is very relevant. Deeper manual matching must be performed. complete reliance on softwares for matching can lead to leakage of genuine credits. Example which I gave, no, invoice date में एक दिन का फर्क था, उसने मेरे सारे जीएसटी के पैसे रोक दिए. Correct. Internal systems, we have to live with it. Correct. Unless Supreme Court 10 साल में इसको स्ट्रक डाउन करेगा, हमें 10 साल तो इसके संग कम से कम रहना है. तो कितना हम efficiently अपने बुक्स को स्ट्रॉन्ग रख सकें, so that these challenges are not there. Okay. There are situations where ITC will be reflected in books but not in 2B. Many reasons. B2C डाल दिया होगा, typo error हो गया GSTN में, dates में, right? And debiting tax cost to the supplier. मेरे पास आपका क्रेडिट नहीं दिखा, आपका पैसा मैंने रोक दिया. Very big challenge. Very big challenge. Okay. Very important thing. You ask me, Gagan, 2A versus 2B, which credit should be looked into? So there was a circular number 135. It was there in 2017, which says that when you are claiming refund of input tax credit, that entry should be there in your GSTR 2A. Very well. It also said that if any entry is not there in your GSTR 2A, आप उसकी हार्ड कॉपी ऑफ इनवॉइसेस दिखाओ ऑफिसर को, एंड ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ दोज इनवॉइसेस वो आपके रिफंड क्लेम को प्रोसेस कर देगा. तो ये रेलेवेंस अभी भी है, ये सर्कुलर अभी भी विड्रॉ नहीं हुआ है. दिस ऑल्सो नीड्स टू बी टेकन केयर ऑफ. ओके. अगेन वन क्वेश्चन इज, गगन, bill date is of 24th January 2022. Should have been filed in R1 by the supplier by 11th of February 2022. He filed it late. It will not show in my 2B for this month. It will show in my 2B for next month. When should I take the credit? Correct. Law बोलता है it should be communicated. Communication तो हो गया ना अगले महीने. So why should I not take the credit on invoice date? Officers will tell you, no, 2B में जिस दिन दिख रहा है, जिस दिन 2B में आया, जिस महीने आया, उसी महीने आपको क्रेडिट मिलेगी. But the law says it should be communicated. You need to keep those things in mind. Month on month basis में you have to do the matching. Ideally, effectively, आपके पास बहुत कम दिन होती है क्रेडिट मैचिंग के लिए, but yes, that's what that robust system has to be there. There are a lot of situations where your data in 2B and data in 3B will be different. And see, in GST एक चीज को समझते हैं, there may be different. There are a lot of reconciliation. इसको इससे मैच करो, 3B को 2B से करो, 2A को 2B से करो, 3B को बुक से करो, बुक्स को 2B, बहुत सारी मैचिंग होती है. There will be lot of reconciliations, lot of differences. Always find out whether there is a logical explanation for the difference or not. If there it is, it's okay. But still questions उठेंगी. 2B and 3B में there is one column which says आपको रिवर्स चार्ज पे कितने रुपए पर टैक्स पे करना है. करेक्ट. सामने वाले ने R1 फाइल किया होगा, बेस्ड ऑन दैट यू हैव टू पे टैक्स अंडर रिवर्स चार्ज. नाउ लेट अस से जनवरी मंथ आई took some services on which reverse charge is applicable. I have to pay reverse charge, tax under reverse charge. Okay. The supplier will file his GSTR1 for this month. Okay. It will be reflected in my GSTR2B for this month. Okay. Under which head? Tax payable under reverse charge. Okay. But time of supply provision says that in case of reverse charge tax liability for services, you are allowed 60 days from the date of invoice. If you are making payment after that date, 60 दिन में आप पेमेंट कर सकते हो, नहीं तो 61वें दिन टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई आती है. वो रिकंसिलिएशन तो ये कर नहीं रहा ना, वो तो आपको बोल दिया इस महीने आप लाइबिलिटी दो भैया, मैं तो उसको अगले महीने पेमेंट करूंगा, मैं तो अगले महीने आरसीएम दूंगा. बट दोज ऑल चैलेंजेस आर देयर, so you need to take care. Just because notice आएगी 2B 3B different है, simply do not agree to it, simply do not deny it. Have a reason why it is different. Okay, so I'll now talk about blocking of GSTR1. Again, constitutional challenges maybe है कि when you say that you will prescribe conditions and measures, can you actually block filing of GSTR1? Because fake ITC के लिए तो it's all logical. आप fake हो, हम आपको R1 ही नहीं लगाने देंगे, सामने वाले को 2B में दिखेगा ही नहीं. But it says that if you have not filed your 3B for the preceding month, तो आपको इस महीने का R1 नहीं लगाने देंगे. मतलब you have to be totally updated. You cannot be saying कि पैसे नहीं है 3B I will not file, I'll keep filing R1. No, not allowed. Now one more point that they have introduced now is that self-assessed tax. What is self-assessed tax? Tax which you self-assess and declare that this is my tax liability. So section 7512 talks about self-assessed tax and all. Under section 39 बट 39 की हमें पता है GSTR 1, 2, 3 तो है नहीं, 3 भी है. तो दे हैव एडेड एन एक्सप्लेनेशन दैट सेल्फ असेस टैक्स मतलब आपने GSTR 1 में जो लाइबिलिटी डिस्क्लोज करी है और वो आपके अगर 3B से मैच नहीं करती है, कम है, तो हम मान लेंगे कि आपका जो ज्यादा है वो आपका सेल्फ असेस टैक्स है. यू आर रिक्वायर्ड टू पे दैट. इन शॉर्ट, 3B कम है, R1 ज्यादा है, उनको ये सेल्फ असेस टैक्स का आइटम दिख गया. नाउ द लॉ सेज इफ देयर इज एनी सेल्फ असेस टैक्स आई विल स्टार्ट विथ रिकवरी प्रोसीडिंग्स. रिकवरी मैं चालू कर दूंगा सेक्शन 79 का. तो टेक अ सिचुएशन, आई मिस्ड आउट filing certain transactions in R1. I've reported in next month. Or let us say other way around. Earlier I have paid extra. Now I am reducing it. So individual month wise मैं देखूंगा तो 3B और R1 में differences आ सकती है. Correct? So just because there is a different, the law says you can start recovery, but then there was an instruction by CBIC on 7th January. ये आपको थोड़ी सांस लेने की राहत देगी. ये बोलता है भैया सीधा सीधी मत रिकवरी चालू करो, पहले एक नोटिस दो कि आपका डिफरेंस है, या तो एक्सप्लेन करो या तो टैक्स पे करो. एंड देन द एसएससी विल गेट एन ऑप्शन टू एक्सप्लेन व्हाई देयर इज अ डिफरेंस, वेदर इट हैज बीन टेकन केयर और नॉट, वेदर genuinely if there is a mistake you pay the tax, then recovery proceedings and all will not be done. Correct? So this is again law, again in challenges, but we have to operational wise we have to look at the compliances. पोस्ट फैक्टो कुछ काम हो जाएगा, नोटिसेस आ जाएगी, देन यू हैव टू गो फॉर लॉट ऑफ लिटिगेशंस, जिसके लिए भी रस्ते हैं. प्रोविजनल अटैचमेंट की स्कोप वाइडन कर दी गई है. व्हाट इज प्रोविजनल अटैचमेंट? देयर आर सर्टेन केसेस वेयर योर बैंक अकाउंट, योर प्रॉपर्टीज कैन बी प्रोविजनली अटैच्ड पेंडिंग फाइनलिटी ऑफ द एडजुडिकेशन. अर्लियर इट हैड वेरी लिमिटेड स्कोप वेयर प्रोविजनल असेसमेंट अंडर सेक्शन 83 कैन बी डन. नाउ दे हैव इंक्रीज्ड दो स्कोप to include lot of sections, provisional assessment, self assessment. self assessment में भी आपकी provisional attachment, bank attachment की आ गई है, summons, arrest, इन सारे cases में भी आ गया है. One more point just that 71 section 71 is still not covered. section 71 में अगर आपकी कोई proceeding pending है, section 71 talks about access to business premise. If I'm not allowing access to my business premises to the officer, then provisional attachment cannot be invoked. वो चीजें हमें थोड़ी सी ध्यान रखनी पड़ेगी. राइट? वन मोर अमेंडमेंट. दिस इज, आई गिव यू द ब्रीफ क्या होता था. दिस इज रिलेटेड टू ई-वेबल डिटेंशन, सीजर एंड देन कन्फिस्केशन ऑफ गुड्स इन कन्वेंस इन ट्रांजिट. मेरी गुड्स मूव कर रही है, ऑफिसर ने रोका, आई वॉन्ट टू वेरीफाई इंस्पेक्शन, एंड देन ही विल डिटेन द गुड्स एंड द कन्वेंस, डू हिज ऑब्जर्वेशंस and calculate that this is the amount of tax and penalty that you have to pay. So the earlier law said whatever is the difference, the tax you have to pay and an amount equal to tax, that means 100% of tax will be the penalty. 100 रुपए की आप पे टैक्स लाइबिलिटी बनेगी तो 100 रुपए की पेनल्टी बनेगी. आप ये 200 रुपए जब दे दोगे, then your goods will be released. You can still appeal if you want, आप अपील करो, but if you want your goods to be released, if you want your conveyance to be released, 100 rupees tax and 100 rupees penalty you have to pay, whatever is the demand. Now, what was the challenge? Try to understand. I used to pay 200 rupees, 100 rupees tax and 100 rupees penalty. Correct. Now, when I was filing my GSTR 3B and R1, I will report this sale as my sales to the party. मैंने टैक्स तो दे ही दिया, जितना उसने मांगा मैंने टैक्स तो दे दिया. I will report in my R1, but I will not report in my 3B because I have already paid the tax. Now, technically I am correct. There is no challenge. Challenge कहाँ आएगी? Buyer को credit लेने में. Buyer जब credit लेगा ना, when he will take credit, section 17(5) restricts that any tax paid under section 129 detention seizure, जब मैं वहां से पेमेंट करूंगा, उसकी क्रेडिट बायर को नहीं मिलेगी. तो अगर मुझे बायर को क्रेडिट देना है तो 3B में जाके फिर से टैक्स पे करना पड़ता था. तो ऑन वन ट्रांजैक्शन आई यूज्ड टू पे टैक्स वंस एट द टाइम ऑफ रिलीज ऑफ गुड्स, वंस एट द टाइम ऑफ फाइलिंग 3B फॉर द बायर टू टेक क्रेडिट. लॉट ऑफ केसेस दे वर नॉट पेइंग द टैक्स, आई हैव ऑलरेडी पेड द टैक्स, बट देन बायर को चैलेंज आ रही थी. करेक्ट? नाउ बिकॉज ऑफ, अच्छा प्रैक्टिकली एक चीज समझिए, आपने किसी से गुड्स खरीदा तो रस्ते में उसकी माल पकड़ी गई, उसने छुड़वाया, आपको भेज दिया, आपको पता भी नहीं चला ये सब कुछ हुआ है. आपको 2B में एंट्री दिख रहा है, कि हाँ सामने वाले ने R1 लगाया। आपको कैसे पता चलेगा कि सामने वाले ने जो इसका टैक्स दिया है वो 3B से दिया है कि ऑफिसर को कन्फिस्केशन के बाद DRC 03 से पेमेंट हुआ है? You don't have any mechanism to find out, right? But that was the law. Now they have changed that law. Now it says that instead of 100 rupees tax and 100 rupees penalty, you pay me only penalty but pay 200. तो 100 रुपए टैक्स 100 रुपए पेनल्टी की जगह आप 200 रुपए पेनल्टी मांगेगा. Simple. That is the change that they want. 100 rupees, 200 rupees is penalty, and बाकी सारे provisions is similar to it, where owner comes forward, then the rate of tax and the amount of penalty is now different. When the owner doesn't come forward, then it is different. उनमें कुछ ज्यादा खास change नहीं है. Now it says that there's one more change, that there is a timeline which is very good. Now it is provided for issuance of notice. आपकी गुड्स जब वो डिटेन करेगी उसके 7 दिनों के अंदर में उसको नोटिस देना पड़ेगा कि इतने दिन में आपका क्यों. नोटिस मीन्स इट्स अ चार्ज शीट कि व्हाट आर द चार्जेस ऑफिसर इज फ्रेमिंग अगेंस्ट यू, एंड विद इन 7 days ऑफ दैट नोटिस he will also have to pass an order भी देना पड़ेगा, and within 15 days of that order you can appeal. Now one interesting fact I'll tell you, this order they have to upload on the portal, correct? So in one of our cases the officer has not uploaded on the common portal. It says you have to pass, okay, done. वो order upload नहीं कर रहा, मुझे अपील करना है. I have 15 days from when he makes it available, but वो अपलोड ही नहीं कर रहा. वो बोल रहा अगर आपको ऑर्डर की कॉपी चाहिए तो आप मुझे एक डिक्लेरेशन लिख के दो कि आप अपील नहीं करोगे तो ही मैं करूंगा. अगेन बदमाशी है, देयर इज नथिंग लीगल इन इट, देयर आर लॉट ऑफ वेज टू सॉल्व इट, बट ये चैलेंजेस आपको आ रही है. तो दे हैव ट्राइड टू मेक सर्टेन रिलैक्सेशंस एंड प्रोसीजरल ईज कि आपको ये दिक्कतें ना आए, करेक्ट? One very welcome change was that, let us say goods and conveyance are detained and seized by the officer. Let us say the demand of that tax and penalty, 200 penalty or whatever it is let us say 50 lakhs. Now the owner is saying नहीं भैया हम तो लड़ेंगे, हम तो 50 लाख रुपए नहीं देंगे गुड्स रिलीज कराने के लिए या वो उसके लिए. I don't want my goods, I will appeal, I don't have 50 lakhs to pay. तो बेचारा ट्रांसपोर्टर का गाड़ी भी फंसा रहता था साथ में. Now they have said transporter is now allowed to release the conveyance. वो अपना खाली गाड़ी छुड़वा सकता है upon paying the penalty. या तो 200% पेनल्टी दे दो या 1 लाख रुपया, which ever is lower. तो हमारे एग्जांपल में 50 लाख नहीं देना, वो 1 लाख रुपया देके अपना गाड़ी तो छुड़वा सकता है, बिकॉज उस गाड़ी से बाकी के he'll run it, no, and he'll earn money out of it. क्यों गाड़ी फंसा के रखे बिना? तो now this option is there to the transporter. Again, when you want to appeal, you have to make some pre-deposit, correct? And that pre-deposit was always as a percentage of the tax and dispute. तो अभी tax and dispute तो रहा ही नहीं, क्योंकि आप तो पेनल्टी दे रहे हो 200%, करेक्ट? सो इफ यू हैव टू, लेट अस से आपने अपील फाइल करना है तो आपको 25% ऑफ द पेनल्टी हैज टू बी पेड प्रायर टू फाइलिंग द सेम. एंड लेट अस से आपने पूरी पेनल्टी देके गुड्स रिलीज करा दी, देन तो यू हैव पेड 100%, करेक्ट? ओके. There are certain procedural changes also. Disposal of goods, जो उन लोग कन्फिस्केट कर लेंगे ना गुड्स को, कन्फिस्केशन के बाद उसको उन लोग ई ऑक्शन एंड बाकी मोड से सेल करते हैं टू रिकवर देयर मनी. तो देर आर सर्टेन प्रोसीजरल चेंजेस इन इट. वी आर नॉट डिस्कसिंग दैट इन डिटेल, बट कीप इन माइंड देर इज सर्टेन प्रोसीजरल चेंजेस फॉर disposal of goods after confiscation also. Quickly we'll touch upon certain other key amendments. Aadhaar authentication. It is now mandatory to get your Aadhaar authentication, specifically if you are filing application for revocation of cancellation. आपकी रजिस्ट्रेशन कैंसिल कर दी गई है, आपको रिवोक करना है तो पहले तो आधार ऑथेंटिकेशन कराओ. क्यों आया था ये आधार ऑथेंटिकेशन? Why was it required? Because in one of our clients' case, I'll not say client's case, one of the case where we were involved, we found out that the registration has been taken in the name of a sweeper of a municipal corporation. चला कोई और रहा था, स्वीपर के नाम पे जीएसटी रजिस्ट्रेशन लिया हुआ है, उसको पता भी नहीं था. देयर आर लॉट ऑफ केसेस जहां पे वी ऑल नो ऑफिसेस के पियोन, ड्राइवर, उन सब के नाम पे हम लोग कंपनी फ्लोट करते हैं और उनके नाम पे से हम काम करते हैं. नाउ आधार ऑथेंटिकेशन मींस जो आपके आधार कार्ड में मोबाइल नंबर है उस पर ओटीपी जाएगी and then you have to upload it. So somewhere government thought that आधार ऑथेंटिकेशन कर देने से कुछ तो ये सॉर्ट आउट होगा कि जिसके नाम पे रजिस्ट्रेशन है उसके पास मैसेज जा रहा है, ही इज अवेयर. करेक्ट, अगर वो मेरे साथ मिलके है कि हाँ करिए ना बाबू कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, देन इट इज अगेन नॉट एन चैलेंज. तो रिवोकेशन ऑफ कैंसिलेशन आधार ऑथेंटिकेशन इज मस्ट. Filing of refund application without payment of tax or with payment of tax, both cases your Aadhaar authentication is now must. And let us say if somebody is not allotted, Aadhaar number is not allotted to him, then what can he be given for getting the revocation or refund application? There has to be his Aadhaar enrollment ID slip. मैंने अप्लाई किया है उसकी स्लिप, and और नहीं है and, so Aadhaar enrollment slip ID is must. Along with that, any of these documents you can give to get your Aadhaar authentication done. Aadhaar number मिलने से 30 दिनों में आपको कर लेना है. Certain persons are exempted, not a citizen of India, department or establishment of central government or state government, local authority, statutory body, public center. These are not, they are not required. आप डैशबोर्ड पे प्रोफाइल में जाके Aadhaar authentication status चेक करो and complete कर सकते हो. Certain other amendment 99C की date has been extended. ITC 04, which is required for job, getting your process done through some job worker. वो job worker आपके premises पे नहीं, आप माल भेजते हो किसी को job work के लिए, there you are required to file a statement of ITC 04. ये statement क्या था? आपने कितना माल भेजा और वो माल कब कब आपके पास वापस आया. Because there's a time limit, I have to get your goods back within 1 year and capital goods back within 3 years. So they wanted कि आप मुझे एक ITC 4 की statement दो. प्रेजेंटली इट वॉज क्वार्टरली, एवरी क्वार्टर यू वर सपोज टू गिव. बहुत रिलैक्स कर दिया. ITC 4 के बहुत चैलेंजेस थे फॉर्म को भरने के लिए, उनको बहुत को रिलैक्स कर दिया इन्होंने. पहले क्वार्टरली था, अब और भी आगे बढ़ के बोलते हैं इफ योर टर्नओवर इज लेस देन 5 करोड़ तो साल में एक बार, मोर देन 5 करोड़ तो हाफ ईयरली, और थोड़ा इफेक्ट चेंज कर दिया. वन मोर चेंज दैट दे हैव ब्रॉट आउट इज टाइम लिमिट ऑफ 2 years. एनी रिफंड व्हेन यू फाइल there is a time limit of 2 years from relevant date. उस दिन से आप 2 साल में पैसे की रिफंड ले सकते हो. Now let us say some transaction I was supposed to pay CGST plus SGST, पर मैंने भूल से IGST दे दिया था. बाद में ऑफिसर ने मांगा या मैंने खुद रियलाइज किया कि देना तो C plus S था पर मैंने दे तो I दिया. तो सेक्शन 77 बोलता है करेक्ट टैक्स आप पहले पे करो और जो गलत पे कर दिया उसकी रिफंड ले लो. ओके, तो अब ये क्वेश्चन आता था कि मैं जब रिफंड लूंगा तो वो 2 साल की डेट कब से देखेंगे. पहले लॉ में बोलता था कि आपको आपकी डेट ऑफ पेमेंट ऑफ टैक्स से देखनी है. तो मान लेते हैं 17-18 का असेसमेंट अगर आज होता है और ऑफिसर बोलते हैं नहीं नहीं इस पे CGST SGST दिया था, IGST देना था, करेक्ट टैक्स चलो IGST दो, तो मैं बोलूंगा चलो C और S का रिफंड दो मुझे वापस. तो बोलेगा ठीक है फाइल करो रिफंड, 2 साल फ्रॉम द पेमेंट डेट, 2017 में तुमने पेमेंट किया, सॉरी सर टाइम पीरियड पार हो गया. दैट वाज द चैलेंज. सो नाउ दे हैव क्लैरिफाइड कि भैया फॉर दिस केस सेक्शन 77 व्हेनेवर यू आर पेइंग द करेक्ट टैक्स, आज जब आप करेक्ट टैक्स पे करोगे उस दिन से आपको 2 साल देखना है, चाहे ऑफिसर बोले और सुओ मोटो, वट एवर इज द केस, योर 2 years टाइम लिमिट विल स्टार्ट फ्रॉम द डेट ऑफ पेमेंट ऑफ करेक्ट टैक्स. एंटी प्रॉफिटिंग अथॉरिटी 1 साल और बढ़ गया. refund application for diplomatic missions. छोटे मोटे changes है, not very relevant in our day-to-day operations. Concept of mutuality I'll quickly touch upon. I'll not deliberate in detail on this topic. Quickly I will touch upon. What was the issue? A club or an association and its members, a person, a club and its members, are they one and the same? Concept of mutuality, or are they two separate persons? So there was a Supreme Court judgment in case of Calcutta clubs that one cannot do business with oneself. Association are the same as members. ये सर्विस टैक्स की एक लेवी उनकी स्ट्रक डाउन भी हुई थी 2019 में. बहुत फेमस जजमेंट था मैं इसलिए बोलूंगा क्योंकि सरकार ने अभी से सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जजमेंट को भी बदल दिया लॉ चेंज करके. ये बहुत हमेशा करते हैं क्योंकि एक सुप्रीम कोर्ट एसएससी के फेवर में आया तो चलो लेट अस चेंज द लॉ. नाउ दे आर सेइंग नो I will introduce one more subsection in section 7 which talks about what is a supply. Then it says 7(1) supply के definition में add कर दिया activities or transaction by a person माने club other than individual, ठीक है क्लब आ गए, to its members or constituents, ये भी एक supply है. एंड ये लॉ को इन लोगों ने बैक डेट से 1 जुलाई बोली, तो हमेशा से 1 जुलाई 2017 से यार यही मतलब था इस सेक्शन का. तो इट इज अगेन वन चैलेंज कि आज के दिन में दोज क्लब्स हु आर नॉट पेइंग टैक्स ऑन ट्रांजैक्शंस विद इट्स मेंबर्स, दे आर नाउ रिक्वायर्ड टू पे फ्रॉम 1 जुलाई. लॉट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस, लॉट ऑफ इम्पैक्ट. दिस सेक्शन नोवेयर टॉक्स अबाउट क्लब्स और एसोसिएशन. ये इंटरप्रिटेशन है क्योंकि सुप्रीम कोर्ट के इस जजमेंट के अगेंस्ट में आया है. इट सेज एक्टिविटीज ऑफ ट्रांजैक्शंस बाय अ पर्सन्स टू इट्स मेंबर्स और कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट्स. तो इसकी बहुत वाइड इंटरप्रिटेशन हो सकती है कि कैन दिस बी ड्रिल्ड डाउन टू अ पार्टनरशिप वेयर transactions or activities between the partnership and the partners may also be brought within this ambit. और भी बहुत सारी चीज है. Again, that's a thought process. Some clubs and associations, they were not paying. Earlier they were paying. Supreme Court के judgment के बाद they were not paying. 2019 के बाद. Probably they have to start again. We can also examine that there's one exemption that services between cost allocation services between the association and the member 7,500 per month per member, there was an exemption. You can look into it. The most challenging part is 2017 से आज आप इसमें मुझसे टैक्स ले रहे हो, रेट्रोएक्टिवली चेंज कर रहे हो कोई प्रोविजन को, तो मुझे इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट उस पीरियड का कौन देगा? आप तो आके 16(4) से बोल दोगे गगन 6 महीना पार हो गया सितंबर का. नाउ 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, आई थिंक 21, 22 की आप क्रेडिट अभी बस ले सकते हो. 20-21 की भी क्रेडिट आपके हाथ से टेक्निकली चली गई है. ये अभी और चलेगा. आप अंडर प्रोटेस्ट पे करते रहो. अगेन व्हेन दिस रेट्रोएक्टिव चेंज विल बी स्ट्रक डाउन देन इट विल बी अगेन इन आवर फेवर. बट अगर अंडर डिस्प्यूट पे नहीं करोगे तो दैट वुड अगेन वो रिफंड की 2 साल की टाइम लेट आ जाएगी. पैसेंजर ट्रांसपोर्ट सर्विसेज थ्रू ई कॉमर्स, क्विकली आई विल टच अपॉन सर्टेन कैटेगरीज ऑफ व्हीकल हैव बीन एडेड. जैसे ओला उबर में अभी भी ओला उबर टैक्स देते थे, ना कि drivers. Certain more types of cabs have been introduced. ऑटो रिक्शाज भी उसमें इंक्लूड कर दी गई है. मीटर्ड कैब्स ऑटो रिक्शा आ गई. ऑटो रिक्शा आप अगर उबर से बुक करते हो तो जो ऑटो रिक्शा आप अदरवाइज सड़क से लोगे तो वही ऑटो रिक्शा तो रहेगा ना. वही ऑटो रिक्शा सड़क से लोगे तो उस पर जीएसटी नहीं है. उबर के थ्रू या ओला के थ्रू लोगे तो उसमें जीएसटी की आ जाएगी लाइबिलिटी. अगेन जैसे ये ऑटो की एग्जांपल है ना, वही वाला ऑटो जो मार्केट में चलता है वही आएगा मेरे पास. ये एक और चैलेंज है, मे नॉट बी रेलेवेंट फॉर दिस फोरम बट क्विकली आई जस्ट टच अपॉन रेस्टोरेंट सप्लाईज थ्रू ई कॉमर्स. व्हाट इज दिस चेंज? आई वुड से लास्ट couple of years, maximum last 5 years, restaurant business through cloud kitchens have increased a lot, right? And restaurant is one area जहां पे टैक्स की चोरी भी बहुत होती है. तो सरकार ने बोला ठीक है चलो, जिस तरह से ओला उबर के ड्राइवर्स है ना, जिनको खुद की कंप्लायंस नहीं करनी है, ओला उबर उनका कंप्लायंस करता है, उसी तरह रेस्टोरेंट जो ई कॉमर्स ऑपरेटर से सप्लाई करेंगे उनको मैं बोलूंगा भैया तुम्हारा टैक्स ई कॉमर्स ऑपरेटर देगा. कस्टमर से कलेक्ट करेगा ई कॉमर्स ऑपरेटर और वो जमा करेगा. रेस्टोरेंट तुम्हें कंप्लायंस नहीं करनी. अगेन वन लॉजिक इज लॉट ऑफ रेस्टोरेंट्स मे नॉट बी दैट टैक्स कंप्लायंट, बट ई कॉमर्स ऑपरेटर तो बड़ा कंपनी होगा, उसको तो करना पड़ेगा, उसको पकड़ना भी आसान है. तो दैट इज द लॉजिक. चैलेंजेस क्या है? पहला बात, दिस प्रोविजन इज एप्लीकेबल फॉर एनी रेस्टोरेंट सर्विस जो कि एक ऐसे जगह पे, एक ऐसे होटल में ना हो जिस होटल की एक भी रूम रेंट 7,500 के ऊपर है. मतलब बढ़िया होटल है, थोड़ा बड़ा होटल है जिसकी रूम रेंट 7,500 के ऊपर है, तो वहां पे ये वाला रिवर्स चार्ज वाला ऑप्शन नहीं आएगा. ई कॉमर्स को नहीं देना है. वहां से अगर वो रेस्टोरेंट ई कॉमर्स के थ्रू भी सेल करता है, स्विगी जोमेटो से भी, तो रेस्टोरेंट ही टैक्स देगा. उस केस में स्विगी जोमेटो नहीं देगा. नाउ कैसे कैसे चैलेंजेस है देखिए. एक रेस्टोरेंट है, 5 स्टार में नहीं है, नॉर्मल रेस्टोरेंट है, इन हाउस डाइनिंग कोई आके कर रहा है, मुझे फॉरवर्ड चार्ज पे सरकार को टैक्स देना है. टेक अवे अगर कोई लेके जा रहा है मेरे ही से किचन से, मुझे टैक्स देना है. होम डिलीवरी अगर मैं कर रहा हूं, मैं अपने रेस्टोरेंट, मेरे रेस्टोरेंट में फोन करके किसी ने ऑर्डर दिया, आई एम गिविंग इट टू दैट पर्सन, आई हैव टू टैक्स चार्ज अंडर फॉरवर्ड चार्ज. बट थ्रू दैट सेम restaurant, if I'm getting any orders through online e-commerce platforms such as Swiggy, Zomato or others, then that person will pay tax. Correct? तो any restaurants जो 5 स्टार में है वो फॉरवर्ड चार्ज में देंगे, नॉन 5 स्टार्स में है ई कॉमर्स वाले सेल्स के ऊपर में खाली ई कॉमर्स देगा, बचा हुआ पे आपको देना है. अगेन रेस्टोरेंट्स जो अदरवाइज कवर्ड है फॉर दिस 9(5) सेक्शन, बट इफ दे आर सेलिंग सर्टेन प्रोडक्ट्स जैसे बेकरी प्रोडक्ट्स, पैकेज फूड, आइसक्रीम्स, तो इसमें आपको फॉरवर्ड चार्ज ही देना है, बिकॉज ये रेस्टोरेंट सर्विस की डेफिनेशन में नहीं आता. तो एक ही रेस्टोरेंट को कितने टाइप्स ऑफ ट्रांजैक्शंस पे, आइसक्रीम मैं बेचूंगा फॉरवर्ड चार्ज देना है, आइसक्रीम मैं यहां पे सेल कर रहा हूं, रेस्टोरेंट में सर्व कर रहा हूं, उसको रेस्टोरेंट सर्विस मान के टैक्स देना है। बहुत सारे चैलेंजेस है, जस्ट फॉर योर नॉलेज ये सारे चीज है। बहुत सारे और चैलेंजेस है। मैं अपना टर्नओवर किसको मानूंगा? ई कॉमर्स प्लेटफॉर्म से जो सेल हो रहा है उस पर तो ई कॉमर्स टैक्स दे रहा है। मैं अपने सिर्फ लोकल टैक्स को, लोकल टर्नओवर को मानू जो मैं इफेक्ट कर रहा हूं, उसको 20 लाख के लिए कंसिडर करना है। आईटीसी रिवर्सल करना है क्या? जिस ट्रांजैक्शन, जिस सेल के ऊपर में ई कॉमर्स टैक्स दे रहा है उसके ऊपर मुझे आईटीसी रिवर्सल करना है क्या? करेक्ट। अगेन वन क्वेश्चन उस ई कॉमर्स ऑपरेटर के लिए सोचिए, ई कॉमर्स ऑपरेटर के लिए रेस्टोरेंट की सेल पे वो टैक्स देगा सरकार को अंडर 95, दैट कैटेगरी ऑफ रिवर्स चार्ज, एग्रीगेटर जिसको बोलते हैं। तो ई कॉमर्स के भी तो बहुत सारे खर्चे होते हैं। रेस्टोरेंट इज अ आइटम वेयर आईटीसी इज ब्लॉक्ड, तो क्या होगी? ई कॉमर्स को अपने कॉमन क्रेडिट्स को टर्नओवर का एट्रीब्यूट करके रिवर्सल करना पड़ेगा क्या? तो बहुत सारे चैलेंजेस है, आएगी धीरे धीरे, विच वी आर नॉट डिस्कसिंग इन डिटेल्स। ओके, गवर्नमेंट प्रोजेक्ट्स, वेरी गुड। जीएसटी में गवर्नमेंट अगर मैं बोलूं तो 5 कैटेगरी आते हैं गवर्नमेंट्स के: सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट, लोकल अथॉरिटी, म्यूनिसिपैलिटी, लोकल अथॉरिटी, फिर गवर्नमेंटल अथॉरिटी एंड गवर्नमेंटल एंटिटीज। ये 5 है। तो देयर वर सर्टेन एग्जेम्पशंस and rates, beneficial rates for all these 5 categories: central government, state government, local authority, government entity. Now what change they have brought कि हमें तो रेट रैशनलाइज करना है हर जगह, ताकि कहीं पे भी इन्वर्टेड ड्यूटी ना बचे, लोगों को तकलीफ ना हो इन्वर्टेड ड्यूटी से। ये सारा एग्जांपल्स देखे। तो रेट रैशनलाइजेशन करने के बहाने रेट को बढ़ा दिया या एग्जेम्पशन ही हटा दिया। किन किन को सर्विसेज है, वी विल डिस्कस दैट। गवर्नमेंटल अथॉरिटी और गवर्नमेंटल एंटिटी, 5 में से सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट और लोकल बॉडी, जो लोकल अथॉरिटी जिसकी इलेक्शंस होती है, ये है, बाकी हट गए। उसकी डेफिनेशन है, कोई चैलेंज होगा तो वी विल डिस्कस, अदरवाइज वी आर नॉट डिस्कसिंग। गवर्नमेंटल अथॉरिटी फंक्शन इंटरेस्टेड टू म्यूनिसिपैलिटी को काउंटर करने के लिए है, म्यूनिसिपैलिटी या पंचायत, और गवर्नमेंट एंटिटी कोई भी काम जो सरकार को करना है उसको करने के लिए है। वी ऑल नो दिस, नॉट अ बिग इशू। नाउ देयर वर 2 सर्विसेज व्हिच वर एग्जेम्प्ट: प्योर सर्विसेज और कॉम्पोजिट सप्लाई, जहां पे गुड्स की वैल्यू सिर्फ 25% होती है, 75% तक आप सर्विस देते हो, कॉम्पोजिट सप्लाई दे रहे हो। उनमें ये 5 कैटेगरी को अगर आप कोई भी सर्विस दे रहे हो तो इट वॉज एग्जेम्प्ट। नाउ गवर्नमेंटल अथॉरिटी और गवर्नमेंट एंटिटी हटा दिए। नाउ services to them will be taxed at 18%. There was one more category of service, works contract, to all these 5 category of person by way of construction, erection, commissioning, कुछ भी आप बना रहे हो वर्क्स कॉन्ट्रैक्ट। क्या? एक हिस्टोरिकल मॉन्यूमेंट, आर्कियोलॉजिकल साइट, कैनाल, डैम, पाइपलाइन, राइट। अगेन यहां पे 12% रेट था, इसको 18 कर दिया। सेम सब कॉन्ट्रैक्टर के लिए भी 12 था, उसको भी 18 कर दिया। Again there was one works contract service, civil structure or original works meant predominantly for use other than commerce। कोई भी आप गवर्नमेंट अथॉरिटी के लिए सिविल स्ट्रक्चर बना रहे हो जो कॉमर्स के अलावा कहीं पे लगता है, बिजनेस एंड प्रोफेशन में नहीं लग रहा, तो वो एग्जेम्प्ट था। तो ये सारे सॉरी एग्जेम्प्ट नहीं था, 12% पे था, बेनिफिशियल रेट था। अगेन ब्रॉट आउट टू 18%, करेक्ट। एंड अर्थ वर्क, प्रीडोमिनेंट अर्थ वर्क अगर आप कर रहे हो किसी गवर्नमेंट अथॉरिटी या गवर्नमेंट एंटिटी के लिए, then 5% रेट था, नाउ इट हैज बीन ब्रॉट टू 18%। चैलेंजेस क्या है? पहला, स्पिल ओवर इफेक्ट हो सकता है ना, काम पहले किया, उसका बिल अभी हो रहा है, पैसे कब मिल रहे हैं। तो सेक्शन 14 टॉक्स अबाउट वेरेवर देयर इज अ चेंज इन रेट ऑफ टैक्स, हाउ वुड यू डिटरमाइन ऑन द ऑनगोइंग कॉन्ट्रैक्ट। सेक्शन 14 में 2 out of 3 रूल है। 3 चीज देखनी है, इनवॉइस डेट कब है, पैसे कब मिले, और सप्लाई कब हुआ था। इनमें से 3 में से जो भी 2, मिनिमम 2 out of these 3, if it falls after 1st January then the new rate, if it falls before 1st January 2022 then the old rate. What you need to do, action points: review your existing tax clauses with the contracts, government entity and governmental authority के साथ। कम टैक्स था कि एक्स टैक्स था? एक्स टैक्स था, इट्स ओके, जो भी टैक्स लगेगा आपको देना पड़ेगा। कम टैक्स था, स्टार्ट वर्किंग ऑन रिवाइजिंग योर कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स। रनिंग बिल्स को आप असेस करो, प्रॉपरली कम्युनिकेट करो, प्रोजेक्ट वायबल है कि नहीं, वी हैव टू असेस दैट, करेक्ट। तो दीज changes, and subsequently if it is still not viable, a lot of places this is not viable. बहुत सारे चीजें exempt थी, आप उनको अचानक से 18% पे ला रहे हो, so it becomes not that viable. So again representation will be there. अब I will come to certain good points. Textile and footwear industry. So Sunil ji was talking about a refund of inverted duty structure. So I'll quickly touch upon issue situation क्या है cases का. So I'm procuring inputs and input services at a higher rate and supplying at a lower rate. In our case, services we are procuring at 18 and 28% and my output it as 5%. लॉ बोलता है इसका रिफंड ले लो, रूल बोलता है कि भैया हम सर्विस का नहीं देंगे. मैटर हाई कोर्ट्स में गया. देयर वाज वन जजमेंट ऑफ वीकेसी फुटस्टेप्स व्हिच वाज इन फेवर ऑफ द असेसी कि नहीं नहीं ऐसे थोड़ी होता है, मिलेगा रिफंड. लॉजिक दिया था उन्होंने, ऐसा नहीं बोला था बट उन्होंने लॉजिक भी दिया था. ये मैटर सुप्रीम कोर्ट में गया. सुप्रीम कोर्ट सेड सी लॉ माइट बी इलॉजिकल बट इट इज द लॉ. तो वीकेसी फुटस्टेप्स की जजमेंट, हाई कोर्ट की जजमेंट को सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ओवरटर्न कर दिया इन द फेवर ऑफ डिपार्टमेंट कि जो है वो है तो लॉ के हिसाब से, जो डिनाइल हुआ है वो लॉ के हिसाब से है. However, सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज ऑब्जर्व्ड कि इन्वर्टेड ड्यूटी में एक एनोमली तो है. क्या है एनोमली? व्हेन दे डू द कंप्यूटेशन, नो, तो इट कैलकुलेट्स योर नेट आईटीसी कि कितना आपको रिफंड मिलेगा नेट आईटीसी से. आपकी टर्नओवर बाय इन्वर्टेड ड्यूटी टर्नओवर बाय टोटल टर्नओवर निकालते हैं, उसको नेट आईटीसी से माइनस मल्टीप्लाई करते हैं. दैट नेट आईटीसी इट सेज सर्विसेज हटाओ, कैपिटल गुड्स हटाओ. तो एलिजिबल क्रेडिट क्लेम करने के लिए जो नेट आईटीसी बच गया वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ इनपुट्स का बच गया. इट्स ओनली इनपुट्स. बट देन से नो, नाउ सब्ट्रैक्ट द एक्चुअल टैक्स लायबिलिटी दैट यू हैव पेड. तो एक्चुअल टैक्स लायबिलिटी तो मैं सिर्फ इनपुट से पे नहीं करता हूं, मैं तो बाकी इनपुट्स भी लेता हूं ना. तो व्हाई यू आर रिड्यूसिंग द टोटल लायबिलिटी, आउटपुट लायबिलिटी फ्रॉम अ रेस्ट्रिक्टेड इनपुट? ये एनोमली सरकार, हाई कोर्ट ने, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने भी बोला कि देयर इज एन एनोमली इन द वर्किंग एंड गवर्नमेंट शुड गवर्नमेंट शुड कम आउट विद अ रैशनल वे. कैलकुलेशन ठीक करो. वहां पे नेट आईटीसी में सिर्फ आप जो एक्चुअल टैक्स पेड माइनस करते हो उसमें आप इनपुट्स एंड कैपिटल गुड्स भी कंसिडर करने दो, सो दैट मेरा रिडक्शन ना हो, मेरा रिफंड तो पूरा है. नाउ इफ द गवर्नमेंट डज नॉट कम आउट विद इट, it is not in violation of the apex court judgment unless there is a pressure on the CBIC and the government to come out with it. Now who will create that pressure? That Supreme Court judgment VKC footstep may have been in your favor, but it also says that there is an anomaly in the calculation, there is an anomaly in the workings, there is an anomaly in the rules to calculate that refund. So please rectify that anomaly which has been observed by apex court, and please do it fast and do it retrospectively like you do it for others. तो ये प्रेशर जब तक क्रिएट नहीं होगी, प्रोबेबली ये रिलीफ, द ओनली वे ऑफ रिलीफ, सुनील जी 7,300 करोड़ का आपको आज के दिन में अगर है, इज वी हैव टू क्रिएट अ प्रेशर ऑन द अप्रोप्रिएट अथॉरिटीज थ्रू द अप्रोप्रिएट चैनल दैट सी लुक एट द सुप्रीम कोर्ट जजमेंट, प्लीज कंसिडर दिस एनोमली, come out. These are the suggestions from the industry, these are the suggestions from the chamber of commerces, look into it and come out with it. ये प्रेशर बनाना ही एकमात्र टैक्टिक्स है. तो इन्वर्टेड ड्यूटी लॉट ऑफ केसेस में थी, उन सबको रैशनलाइज करना था. रेट इंक्रीज हुई थी गारमेंट्स में, वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. टेक्सटाइल सेक्टर एंड फुटवेयर दोनों में इन्वर्टेड ड्यूटी के लिए उन लोगों ने बोला अच्छा ठीक कर देते हैं, आपका रेट ऑफ टैक्स आउटपुट, आपका आउटपुट कम है ना, चलो आउटपुट ही बढ़ा देते, तो अब तो इन्वर्टेड ड्यूटी बचा नहीं. तो दैट्स व्हाट दे डिड. But under the pressure from the industry, टेक्सटाइल सेक्टर की जो रेट इंक्रीज होनी थी ना 5 से 12, दैट हैज बीन पुट ऑन होल्ड. फुटवेयर वाली पुट ऑन होल्ड नहीं हुई है. तो फुटवेयर सेल वैल्यू जिसकी 1000 से कम है वो 5% था, वो 12% हो गया है. फुटवेयर रैशनलाइजेशन हैज बीन डन, रेट इंक्रीज हैज बीन डन. टेक्सटाइल हैज बीन केप्ट ऑन होल्ड. दैट इज वन पॉइंट. वन मोर पॉइंट which I wanted to talk was cess refund. So let us say I am purchasing coal and I am paying cess 400 रुपए per ton के हिसाब से मैं cess पे कर रहा हूं. Using that coal I am producing some artifact. Let us say a product A has been produced and I am exporting that product. I am selling it locally, I am exporting it also. So when I am exporting, मुझे इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट की रिफंड मिलती है ना. सेक्शन 54 टॉक्स अबाउट यू कैन क्लेम रिफंड ऑफ इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट. तो आई कैन टेक रिफंड ऑफ CGST, SGST, IGST, no issues. But I can also take credit of cess. Some people are doing it, some people are not doing it. Now challenge कहाँ आती है और मजा कहाँ आता है? Let us say I have 100 rupees domestic turnover and 100 rupees export turnover. So my refund ratio is export turnover by aggregate total turnover 100 by 200. Correct? तो बोलेगा आपको 50% ही रिफंड मिलेगा ऑफ वट एवर इज योर नेट ITC. तो जितना भी सेस है उसका 50% मिलेगा. नाउ इंटरेस्टिंग पॉइंट, यहां पे जस्ट 1 मिनट इसको लिंक करने की कोशिश करते हैं. एंड हाउ वेल कैन वी कनेक्ट टू इट. सेस एक्ट borrows lot of its definition from CGST Act and IGST Act. Correct. Now there is a rate notification in cess. इस आइटम पे इतना सेस है, इस आइटम पे इतना सेस है. एंड द लास्ट एंट्री सेज any other item the rate of cess is nil. Correct. So for that matter, steel does not find any specific percentage or an amount of cess, so it falls under the others category, which is nil. CGST एक्ट में nil exempt turnover की डेफिनेशन जब हम देखते हैं तो it includes nil rated item. तो CGST एक्ट के हिसाब से any nil rated item is an exempt supply. सेस एक्ट में बोलता है भैया एग्जाम सप्लाई का डेफिनेशन तुम CGST एक्ट से बोरो करो. कर लिए. तो स्टील फॉर एग्जांपल is a taxable product under CGST Act, but is an exempt supply under cess Act as per the law. Now, if it is an exempt supply, Gagan, what is the benefit? The benefit is in the calculation of refund. Refund में बोलता है आप export turnover by aggregate total turnover करो 100 by 200, बट वो बोलता है ना उस 200 में से डोमेस्टिक exempt सप्लाई को माइनस कर दो. डोमेस्टिक एग्जाम सप्लाई तो 100 रुपया जो मेरा स्टील का लोकल सेल हुआ सेस के लिए तो वो एग्जाम है ना, और मैं सेस का कैलकुलेशन कर रहा हूं. तो देयर माय कैलकुलेशन बिकम्स 100 बाई 200 माइनस 100, मतलब मेरे को पूरा रिफंड मिलेगा सेस का. तो ये एक एंगल, आई डोंट नो हाउ मेनी ऑफ अस आर डूइंग और नॉट, बट अगेन ये एक आई थिंक एंगल शुड बी एक्सप्लोर्ड. सर्टेन रीसेंट चेंजेस क्या है, किस लॉजिक से है, व्हाट यू ऑल शुड बी डूइंग, आई हैव ट्राइड टू कवर. Now there are any questions, Pratik ji, I'll like to take that, and if you have any other issues, I'll also like to take that.
Thank you, Gagan Kedia sir, for such a wonderful session. And right now, Pratik sir is not the call, I think. Vinod Gupta sir, would you like to add something on what Gagan Kedia sir said?
या मैं थोड़ा पूछना चाहूंगा जो रिफंड के बारे में इन्होंने जो बताया, एग्जाम्प्ट का जो है रेशियो है, जैसे हम लोग अभी तो इस तरह से कैलकुलेशन नहीं करते, प्रोपोर्शनेटली ही करते हैं. जैसे सेस एक्ट में जैसे इन्होंने बताया कि वो नील है तो एग्जाम्प्ट माना जाएगा, तो रेशियो तो 100% फिर यहाँ रिफंड मिलेगा. तो क्या हम लोग ये कर सकते हैं क्या, ऐसा क्या?
तो वही तो मैं बोल रहा हूँ, हम लोग कर भी रहे हैं कई सारे क्लाइंट्स के लिए. और मुझे तो टेक्निकली कोई इसमें डिफिकल्टी नहीं लगी. मैं तो जो पढ़ रहा हूँ एक्ट से पढ़ रहा हूँ, और अभी तो मैं आपको जो बता रहा हूँ तो आई हैव नॉट शोड यू द प्रोविजंस ऑफ द एक्ट, बट इफ यू सिंपली, इट्स वेरी सिंपल, आप भी असेस कर सकते हो, ये वेरी सिंपल है. बट आप एक चीज समझिए सर, आज हम लोग मानते हैं कि हम लोग काफी अच्छे से पढ़ते हैं कानून को, करेक्ट, बट जो फर्स्ट लेवल ऑफिसर होगा वो तो लॉजिकल है ना कि उसके दिमाग में ये बात तो घुसेगा नहीं, वो तो मानने से इसको इनकार करेगा ही, नहीं नहीं ऐसे थोड़ी होता है आपको. तो उसको हमें रीजंस देनी पड़ेगी, समझानी पड़ेगी, वो नहीं मानेगा, उसका सीनियर मानेगा. इफ द अमाउंट इज बिग, माई पॉइंट सर, ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड, इफ द अमाउंट इज बिग, क्या वो सेस का आपके पास और कोई यूज है? नहीं सर, हमें तो PL में चार्ज ही करना पड़ता है. तो उसको हम क्यों ना रिफंड ले, ऑप्शन ले, और मिल गया तो ठीक, बहुत आई बिलीव मिल जाएगा, वी आर गोइंग, नहीं मिला तब कर देंगे फिर से रिवर्स। हम छोड़े क्यों? वाई आई डोंट गिव एन ऑप्शन? बिकॉज सी अगेन मैं जो बोल रहा हूँ, टेक्निकली अगर कोई चैलेंजिंग लग रही है, ये मैं बोल रहा हूँ, ये बहुत थॉट प्रोसेस हमने भी डाला, हमने भी 7-8 दिन हमने स्पेंड किया, हमारी एंटायर ऑल इंडिया की हमने ऑफिस से इसमें डिस्कस किया। देन वी केम आउट कि कहाँ पे चैलेंज आ रही है। एग्जाम सप्लाई है, ओके है, एग्जाम सप्लाई का डेफिनेशन लेने बोलता है कि आप सीजीएसटी एक्ट में जाओ, रिफंड कैलकुलेशंस के लिए बोलता है सीजीएसटी एक्ट में जाओ, उसके रूल्स में जो कैलकुलेशन दिया हुआ है वहां जाओ। कैलकुलेशंस बोलता है आपका एग्जाम सप्लाई, डोमेस्टिक एग्जाम सप्लाई माइनस कर लो।
गगन जी, एक चीज मैं पूछना चाहूंगा इससे कि जैसे कि मान लीजिए एग्जाम सप्लाई वहां पे हम ट्रीट कर रहे हैं, तो एक रिवर्सल का भी आता है जो हम लोग जो सीजीएसटी का वो बोरो करेंगे यहाँ पे सेस में, सेस एक्ट में, तो यहाँ पे भी तो उसको रिवर्सल करना पड़ेगा ना मेरे को, जिस तरीके से वो रिवर्स करना है। नॉर्मली जो हम लोग सीजीएसटी एक्ट में करते जो एग्जाम सप्लाई है उसको रिवर्स करते, दैट्स वाई यहाँ पे भी हम वो सेस को रिवर्स करना पड़ेगा।
आप बोल रहे हो जो डोमेस्टिकली सेल मैंने किया उसके ऊपर में सेस की रिवर्सल?
हाँ,
आई नीड टू चेक, बट हमने जितनी एनालिसिस की थी उस पर्टिकुलर प्रोविजन में वो सीजीएसटी एक्ट से शायद बोरो नहीं कर रहा था। आई लाइक चेक।
आपको एग्जांपल एक बता।
आई गॉट व्हाट यू सेड, बट उस एंगल से हमने जब देखा था तो प्राइमा फेसी उसमें वो फॉल नहीं कर रहा था। आई अगेन चेक एंड आई विल गेट बैक टू यू, अपन देख लेंगे। आपकी पॉइंट लॉजिकल है, बट देयर वाज सम लॉजिकल एक्सप्लेनेशन फॉर दैट आल्सो। आई एम नॉट ट्राइंग रिकलेक्टिंग इट नाउ, बट देयर वाज अ सॉल्यूशन टू इट।
ओके ओके
ओके, नाउ प्रतीक जी आप
अच्छा, एक चीज और भी पूछना चाहेंगे आपसे, ये सॉरी टू इंटरप्ट यू, कि जो अभी जो 5% जैसे 100% हम लोग को अभी मैचिंग कराना है ना, तो इससे पहले जो था जो मैचिंग का, क्या हम लोग को जैसे जैसे बफर था 5%, 10% और 20% शुरुआत में जो था जो मैचिंग में, और मान लीजिए कि डिपार्टमेंट जो मान लीजिए कि सो कॉल नोटिस दे रहा है जैसे मिसमैच है, तो क्या इस पे क्या कुछ मतलब मांग सकता है क्या वो? मान लीजिए कि 100% नहीं मैच कर रहा तो?
सर बहुत सिंपल क्वेश्चन है। 1 जनवरी 2021 के पहले कोई कानून नहीं था मैचिंग का। रूल 36(4) कानून नहीं था, वो आपने बनाया बिना कानून के। कानून इज एक्ट। तो एनी मिसमैच कैन बी चैलेंज ऑन द बेसिस कि कोई कानून नहीं है भैया, रूल 36(4) कानून नहीं है। प्लस तुम्हारा खुद का सर्कुलर अगर बोलता है कि अगर 2A में नहीं दिख रहा है तो हार्ड कॉपी ऑफ इनवॉइस देके रिफंड दे दो, तो जब रिफंड दे सकते हो तो क्रेडिट देने में क्या चैलेंज है? तुम्हारा ही सर्कुलर है डिपार्टमेंट का। 1 जनवरी 2022 के बाद से नाउ दिस इज अ लॉ। नाउ ऑफिसर को नहीं बोल सकते, वो कोर्ट में जाके बोलना पड़ेगा कि ये सेक्शन इनवैलिड है। वो हम लोग ने डिस्कस किया कि वो है कैसे, बट ऑफिसर को तो नहीं बोल सकते कि भैया यू आर डूइंग समथिंग बियॉन्ड कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। ऑफिसर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन नहीं देखेगा, ऑफिसर लॉ देखेगा। लॉ है, हम मानेंगे। लॉ को चैलेंज कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में करना है।
ओके ओके ओके, थैंक यू
थैंक यू विनोद सर। एंड नाउ प्रतीक गनेरीवाल सर, आपसे गगन सर का रिक्वेस्ट था कि अगर किसी का कोई क्वेश्चन अगर पुटअप हो सकता है किसी भी मोड से, तो वो अगर अवेलेबल हो जाता तो,
या अगर चैट बॉक्स में आप लोगों ने अगर क्वेश्चन बताए जो देख रहे हैं, अमृत जी, कैन वी हैव दी क्वेश्चंस इन दी चैट बॉक्स so that we can make it available to our speaker? Yeah.
GSTC is very interesting, बट प्रोसीजरल कंप्लायंस इतना ज्यादा कर दिया ना। मैं मीम्स बहुत देखता हूँ, मुझे अच्छा लगता है ना, उसमें जीएसटी के ऐसे ऐसे मीम्स आते हैं कि अब तो 2 आदमी खाली 2B मैचिंग करने के लिए बैठाना पड़ेगा। धंधा छोड़ो, पहले 2B मैचिंग करो। बट है, चैलेंजेस है, बट हमें इसके लिए एक रोबस्ट सिस्टम बनाना है। दैट्स इट। आज हम लोग इनकम टैक्स में करते हैं ना, 26AS में नहीं दिखता है तो नहीं देता है ना वो मेरे 143(1) के प्रोसेसिंग में रिफंड। उसकी क्रेडिट इनपुट टैक्स नहीं, सॉरी, टीडीएस क्रेडिट नहीं देता है ना जब तक 26AS में नहीं दिखता। तो हम उसको कहीं ना कहीं एक्सेप्ट करना चालू कर दिए। हम उसी को जाके बोलते हैं भैया अपना टीडीएस रिटर्न रिवाइज कर, मेरे 26AS में नहीं दिख रहा, कराते हैं ना। बट वो क्वार्टरली या साल में एक बार करते हैं, या हर महीना करना है, वो चैलेंज है।
फिर इस सिचुएशन में वी विल लुक फॉर द सप्लायर कि जो डायरेक्टली अब टू बी में जिसका इनपुट दिखेगा, क्योंकि बार बार फिर वो चीज को करते रहना इज नॉट, कि हर महीने जाके सप्लायर के पास ही करेगा तो काम क्या करेगा।
नहीं, अब जैसे मैं आपको एक प्रैक्टिकल एग्जांपल बता रहा हूं, मैंने एक फोन खरीदा अमेजोन से, मेरा बिजनेस अकाउंट से, मुझे क्रेडिट मिलनी चाहिए, ओके। वो 2A में नहीं दिखा रहा, मेरे 2B में। अब मैं उस पर्टिकुलर सेलर को तो मैं पर्सनली जानता भी नहीं हूं, अमेजोन के थ्रू जानता हूं, मैं रिक्वेस्ट डाल के रखा हूं, ये आ रहा है, नहीं आ रहा है, नहीं आ रहा है। अब वो उसमें लड़ते रहो यार, कितना आदमी इसमें दिमाग लगाएगा एक फोन के क्रेडिट के लिए। बट ऐसे ही एक एक आइटम को छोड़ के करेंगे तो ह्यूज अमाउंट हो जाता है ना। और सबसे बड़ी चैलेंज क्या आती है, आपके पास अगर आपका वॉल्यूम है तो आप क्रेडिट मैचिंग टूल यूज करके एक्शन लेते हो, बट वो टूल बहुत डायनामिक नहीं है। आप जब नजर से उसको देखोगे वर्सेस सॉफ्टवेयर देखेगा तो कुछ ना कुछ एरर्स रहेंगी। आपके इनवॉइस नंबर ही गलत लिख दिया, मान लीजिए आपके बुक्स के हिसाब से आपने अपने रनिंग वाउचर नंबर को ही इनवॉइस नंबर लिख दिया, उसके बिल पे बिल नंबर अलग है। वो बिल नंबर अगर मिसमैच होगा, आपको वो मिसमैच कर दिखा देगा सॉफ्टवेयर। तो बहुत सारी
डिफिकल्टी तो काफी है, बहुत सारी
हाँ,
डिफिकल्टी हम लोग फेस कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि वॉल्यूम हम लोग के यहाँ पे कंपनी बहुत ज्यादा हाई है। तो
करेक्ट।
ये सब इश्यू आ रहा है, सॉफ्टवेयर भी वो हैंडल नहीं कर पा रहा, अभी डेवलप ही नहीं हो रहा है एक्सट्रैक्टर, बहुत सारे इश्यूज आ रहे हैं अभी भी
करेक्ट।
स्टिल।
तो ये ना कभी भी कोई एक सॉफ्टवेयर पे टोटल रहना नहीं। सी मैं बोलता हूं, अगर आप एक्सेल भी यूज करते हो, एक्सेल भी एक सॉफ्टवेयर है, आप उसको कोडिंग करते हो उसमें डाल के कि ऐसे करो निकाल के दो, सब एक सॉफ्टवेयर ही, आप मैनुअली तो नहीं करोगे। बट कितना हद तक मुझे सॉफ्टवेयर पे रिलाई करना है, कितना % मैनुअल इंटरवेंशन रखना है, ताकि ये प्रोसेस कम्युनिकेशन कम रहे, राइट। अब वो कंपनी के बारे में सोचिए, उस एमएनसी जिसने मेरे को चिट्ठी तो भेज दिया, ईमेल भेजने में क्या टास्क लगा, कुछ नहीं लगा। अब मैं उसको रिप्लाई बैक कर रहा हूं तो उसको बैठ के तो फिर एक आदमी को लगाना पड़ रहा है ना, कि अच्छा ठीक है, इनवॉइस डेट में गलती था, एक दिन का आगे पीछे का है, चलो ये इशू नहीं है। मेरा तो पैसा भी ना मतलब फंस गया, उसका तो रेपुटेशन भी खराब हो रहा है ना उस चीज से। तो इसकी हमें पैरिटी लानी पड़ेगी कि कितना सॉफ्टवेयर डालूं, कितना ये डालूं।
Gaganji, should I read the question?
यस प्लीज, यस प्लीज।
Yeah. This question is from CA Charul Sharma. How to fetch BOE in GST portal or in 2B?
ओके, बिल ऑफ एंट्री आप जब भी कोई इंपोर्ट करते हैं ना, आप आईजीएसटी पे करके इंपोर्ट करते हो, वो डिटेल आपके 2B में पॉपुलेट होती है, 2A में नहीं होती थी। और क्रेडिट मैचिंग जहां पर भी करना है, इफ आई वुड, मैं अपनी पीपीटी अगर आपको वापस से शेयर करूं, 16(2)A जो आया है, इट ओनली टॉक्स अबाउट इनवॉइस और डेबिट नोट, उसकी मैचिंग कम्युनिकेशन की बात करता है। It does not talk about credit on the basis of bill of entry, does not talk about credit on the basis of any other reverse charge कि आप जो सेल्फ असेसमेंट टैक्स पे करते हो रिवर्स चार्ज में, उनकी बात नहीं करता है। ये बात करता है सिर्फ टैक्स इनवॉइस और डेबिट नोट्स। तो बिल ऑफ एंट्री, अगर आपने टैक्स पे किया है, आपके पास उसका पेमेंट रिसीट्स है, बिल ऑफ एंट्री है, चलान है, अगर 2B में वो आ जाता है, देयर इज अ कॉलम, अगर वो नहीं भी आता है 2B में ना, आप उसकी क्रेडिट लो, उसके बेसिस पे आपको नोटिस नहीं आएगी, बिकॉज दैट इज नॉट इवन देयर इन द सेक्शन, वो सेक्शन में भी नहीं।
Okay. Going to the next question. The company has a nil rated supply and the company has a ITC of CGST. I have applied for refund such as ITC, but the department issued a deficiency memo. Is there any solution?
ओके, तो सर का एग्जांपल मैं समझ रहा हूं, मैं जो माल बेचता हूं वो नील रेटेड है, तो मुझे आउटपुट टैक्स देना नहीं है, पर किसी तरह मेरे पास कुछ इनपुट भी जमा हुआ है, मैं उसकी रिफंड अप्लाई किया, एक शो कॉज नोटिस आया। तो सर पहले तो यहां समझना है क्या इस चीज का रिफंड मिलेगा, इज इट परमिटेड बाय लॉ। अगर मैं कोई एग्जेम्प्ट आइटम में ट्रेडिंग या मैन्युफैक्चरिंग करके बेचता हूं, तो वो तो सेक्शन 54 के रिफंड प्रोविजंस में ही नहीं आता। रिफंड तो दो ही केस में मिलेगा, एक्सपोर्ट करोगे तो मिलेगा, और इन्वर्टेड ड्यूटी है तो मिलेगा। इन्हीं दो केस में आपको रिफंड मिलेगा। अगर आप एग्जेम्प्टेड माल बेच रहे हो जिसके कारण आउटपुट नहीं है, बट फिर भी इनपुट जमा हुआ, उसका रिफंड तो मिलेगा ही नहीं। इफ दीज आर द ओनली फैक्ट्स, तो आपको तो आई थिंक वो अमाउंट को पीएल में डेबिट ही कर देना चाहिए, बिकॉज इट इज नॉट अ एलिजिबल रिफंड।
जीरो के अंडर आता है ना आपका, नील और एक्सपोर्टेड, या दो आता है ना, नील रेटेड एंड जीरो रेटेड।
तो जीरो रेटेड टर्नओवर, हमें एक बात ये समझनी है, नील रेटेड इज वो प्रोडक्ट नील रेटेड है। मान लेते हैं अगर फोन, तो ये फोन नील रेटेड आइटम है, नील रेटेड प्रोडक्ट है। बट जीरो रेटिंग एक्सपोर्ट्स का दूसरा नाम है, उस सप्लाई को जीरो रेटिंग किया जाता है ताकि उसकी टैक्स लायबिलिटी एक्सपोर्ट ना हो जाए, इंटरनेशनल मार्केट्स में टैक्स ना जाए। तो जीरो रेटेड मींस एक्सपोर्ट्स, नील रेटेड मींस एग्जेम्प्ट। बेनिफिट हमें जीरो रेटिंग की मिलती है, नील की नहीं मिलती है। नील एंड जीरो आर टू डिफरेंट कंसेप्ट्स।
नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन, क्वेश्चन ITC on real estate and its product is blocked. Can ITC on paint can be claimed if used for painting machinery to avoid rust. ITC on real estate and its product is blocked. Can ITC on paints can be claimed if used
अच्छा
for painting machinery to avoid rust?
ठीक। तो ये क्वेश्चन जो मैं समझ रहा हूं कि सेक्शन 17(5)(c) एंड डी में देर आर टू ब्लॉकिंग ऑफ क्रेडिट्स, कि अगर आप कोई इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी खरीदते हो तो आपको उसकी क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगी, और अगर आप खरीदते नहीं और बनाते हो खुद तो भी आपको उसकी क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगी। आपने रॉ मटेरियल्स खरीद के लेबर को हायर करके बनाया तो भी क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगी, और सीधा सीधी किसी से बना बनाया वो लिया तो भी आपको उसकी क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगी। इनका क्वेश्चन है, मैं पेंट अगर दीवालों पे लगाता हूं तो उसकी क्रेडिट ब्लॉक्ड है क्योंकि वो पेंट इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी में यूज हो रही है। क्या वो पेंट में अगर मशीनरी पे लगा रहा हूं कोरोशन फ्री रखने के लिए उसकी क्रेडिट मिलेगी कि नहीं? तो इफ दिस इज योर क्वेश्चन तो देखिए 17(5) इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी की क्रेडिट्स को ब्लॉक करता है, स्पेसिफिकली प्लांट एंड मशीनरी को एक्सक्लूड करता है। तो वहां पे प्लांट एंड मशीनरी आपकी इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी के डेफिनेशन से बाहर है, इवन दो इट इज फास्टेंड टू अर्थ। तो आपको प्लांट एंड मशीनरी पे आप जो खर्चा करिए आपको मिलेगा ना।
इसमें ये अलग अलग कर सकते हैं, जितने पेंट उसमें यूज किए हैं उसको अलग कर लेंगे और जितनी पेंट जो है वो मशीनरी में यूज किए हैं उतना आईटीसी ले लेंगे।
करेक्ट, एकदम परफेक्ट। अगर आपकी दोनों हैं तो आप एट्रीब्यूटेबल अमाउंट को निकाल के अलग से ले सकते हैं। और आई थिंक जो रेगुलर पेंट दीवार पे लगती है और जो पेंट मशीन पे लगती है उसमें फर्क भी है। सेम पेंट नहीं लगता है दोनों जगह, उसकी केमिकल कंपोजिशन में कुछ फर्क आती है। ये मशीनरी पेंट उसमें शायद ऑयल बेस्ड होता है वो कोरोशन फ्री रखने के लिए। तो दोनों की पेंट जो दीवार पे लगाना है वही ब्रश में यहाँ पे नहीं मारूंगा, उसको अलग अलग पेंट है। तो आपके पास तो उस वो भी एक बेसिस है ना कि ये देखो ये मशीनरी पेंट ही है, ये वॉल पेंट है, ये एक्सटीरियर पेंट है, वो फर्क रहेगा। नहीं है तो फिर आप ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ यूज अलग कर देंगे।
Any possibility of rate on bricks to be reduced? It is expected to rise to 12% from 1st April.
अच्छा, ये तो जीएसटी काउंसिल में तो मेरा उतना अच्छा जान पहचान नहीं है कि उन लोगों का क्या थॉट प्रोसेस चल रहा है कि वो लोग रेट रिड्यूस करेंगे या नहीं।
फ्लाई ऐश ब्रिक्स की मुझे लगता है बात हो रही है क्या?
आई थिंक मे बी यस, बट अगेन देखिए जब तक ये मैं ये भी बोलूंगा बहुत ज्यादा ना न्यूज के बेसिस पे भी नहीं जाना चाहिए अनलेस वो कंफर्म्ड सोर्स ऑफ न्यूज से आ रहा हो, क्योंकि आज हमारे यहाँ व्हाट्सएप यूनिवर्सिटी के कारण आप हल्की सी चिंगारी मारो वो आग बहुत जल्दी लग जाता है। करेक्ट, तो वो हमें थोड़ा सा ध्यान रखना है कि नॉट ऑलवेज आई विल बिलीव ऑन रूमर्स। और वो अब टेक्सटाइल में बात चल ही रहा था ना, ट्रस्ट मी, एक दिन पहले जब उन लोगों ने बोला कि नहीं लाएंगे, इवन चेंबर ऑफ कॉमर्स, जो टेक्सटाइल चेंबर ऑफ कॉमर्स कैलकाटा के जो सीनियर्स है ना, उन तक को भी नहीं पता था कि ये हटेगा। दे वर ऑल्सो नॉट कंफर्म्ड कि ये सरकार अभी क्या करेगी, कोई भरोसा नहीं है कि क्यों हटाएगी। करेक्ट, तो डोंट मे बी बहुत स्ट्रांग लॉबी अगर आपकी होगी आपकी इंडस्ट्री की तो शायद कुछ हो सकता है। बट देखिए ना, फुटवेयर पे नहीं हटा ना, टेक्सटाइल पे ऑन होल्ड हो गया, फुटवेयर का तो एक्सटेंड हुआ ही ना। तो अगेन अगर आपको वैसा है ना तो यू प्रिपेयर प्लान बी। अगर होता है तो मुझे क्या करना है, पहले से प्रोक्योरमेंट प्लानिंग करनी है, कुछ वर्क ऑर्डर्स प्लान करने हैं, आप वो पहले से प्लानिंग की रेडी रख लो आपके अप्रैल के पहले।
Could I get the PDF or PPT? I think it's not possible because to email everyone. We will see if we could get the email ID of everyone. We will forward it to everyone. Okay. Is public-private partnership covered? This is the only question. Is public-private partnership covered?
आप ये क्वेश्चन का टाइमिंग बताएंगे ना तो मैं एसेस करता हूं उस समय मैं कौन सा पॉइंट डिस्कस कर रहा था। शायद वो उन बात का बात कर रहे थे क्या जो गवर्नमेंटल अथॉरिटी वाले रेट्स में चेंज आई है, इफ आई एम नॉट श्योर।
Club charges GST on entrance fees even when the membership is given after 5 to 7 years. If the applicant wishes to withdraw his application, is GST refundable?
नहीं, आप अगर किसी ट्रांजैक्शन पर टैक्स दे दिए और बाद में लेटर से, मैं बोल रहा हूँ नहीं, लेटर से मैंने आज 1 लाख रुपए प्रतीक जी को दिया कोई काम के लिए जिस पर जीएसटी भी सरकार को दे दी गई। नाउ आई एम सेइंग कि मैं अब मेंबर नहीं बनूंगा, मेरे 1 लाख रुपए वापस करो आफ्टर 5-7 ईयर्स। करेक्ट, दैट इज द क्वेश्चन। तो इसकी टैक्स सरकार को दे दी गई है, इसको रिवर्सल करने का क्रेडिट नोट का एक टाइम पीरियड होता है, वो भी पार हो चुका है। इंसिडेंस ऑफ ड्यूटी पास ऑन होके मुझ पर आ चुकी है। प्रतीक जी तो इसका रिफंड कभी नहीं अप्लाई कर सकते। आप इंडिविजुअल लेवल पे जा जाके अपील अगर फाइल करोगे, रिफंड एप्लीकेशन फाइल करोगे, तो शायद कोई बात होगी, बट चांसेस है कि वहां पर भी आपको नहीं मिलेगी। बट दैट इज द ओनली ऑप्शन। अगर इस केस में रिफंड लेना है तो सप्लायर नहीं, रिसिपिएंट जाके रिफंड फाइल करेगा। सुरेश कुमार बंसल, सर्विस टैक्स का एक हाईकोर्ट, दिल्ली हाईकोर्ट का जजमेंट भी इसी पॉइंट पे था, सर्विस टैक्स ऑन रियल एस्टेट के ऊपर में जब क्वेश्चन था।
Next question. I have issued a credit note which will be adjusted in subsequent months. As there is no filed in GSTR 3B to report credit note, there will be mismatch in GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B. How to deal this?
परफेक्ट। तो ये क्वेश्चन है कि मेरा टेक्निकल रीजन के कारण 3B और R1 में डिफरेंस आएगा। मैंने क्या बोला, लॉट ऑफ रिकंसिलिएशंस आर देयर इन जीएसटी, और उन सारे रिकंसिलिएशंस में बहुत सारे डिफरेंसेस आ सकते हैं। अगर उस डिफरेंस का आपके पास एक लॉजिकल एक्सप्लेनेशन है तो उसको डॉक्यूमेंट करिए, ये देखो ये डिफरेंस है, ये कारण है डिफरेंस का, ये उसके डॉक्यूमेंट्स है, वो फाइल बना के फाइल में रख दीजिए। एंड अगर अमाउंट बड़ा है, थोड़ा कॉम्प्लिकेटेड है, इट इज ऑलवेज आवर सजेशन कि एक इंटीमेशन डिपार्टमेंट को दे दीजिए कि ऐसा ऐसा हुआ है, इस कारण से डिफरेंस है। तो डिपार्टमेंट कल को आके आपको कुछ भी नहीं बोल सकेगा, बोलेगा भी तो आप दिखा देंगे, देखो ये रहा मेरा रीजन ऑफ डिफरेंस, और मैंने तुम्हें इंटीमेट भी कर दिया था। तो देयर विल बी नो एलिगेशन ऑफ सपरेशन ऑफ फैक्ट्स, देयर विल बी, देखिए अगर आपका वैसा है भी नहीं, देखिए हम लोग जनरली डिपार्टमेंट को कब इंटीमेट करते हैं, प्रायर, जहां पे डिफरेंस ऑफ ओपिनियन आ सकता है। यहां पे तो आपका डिफरेंस ऑफ ओपिनियन भी नहीं होगा, ये तो फैक्चुअल है आपका कि इस रीजन से डिफरेंस है। मेरा क्रेडिट नोट था, आपका 3B में नहीं जाता है वो फिगर, मैं क्या करूं, 3B में माइनस फिगर नहीं लेता, R1 में ले लेता है, राइट। तो इस कारण से आपका टेक्निकल डिफिकल्टी है, मैं क्या करूंगा। इसीलिए तो वो सीबीआईसी का सर्कुलर आया ना, इंस्ट्रक्शन आया 7 जनवरी 2022 का, कि जस्ट बिकॉज एक डिफरेंस है आप मत चालू हो जाओ, पूछो क्यों डिफरेंस है, फिर सेटिस्फाइड हो तो छोड़ दो।
उसी से रिलेटेड एक क्वेश्चन है, कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस इफ क्लेम्ड आईटीसी ग्रेटर देन 2B। अच्छा,
तो बहुत सिंपल से तो मैं बोलूं कि अगर आप कोई भी क्रेडिट जो आपके हक का नहीं है, अगर आप वो लेते हो तो वो उस क्रेडिट को एसएससी ऑफिसर रिकवर कर सकता है, इंटरेस्ट मांग सकता है, पेनल्टी मांग सकता है। आप नहीं दोगे तो रिकवरी प्रोसीडिंग्स करेगा, अमाउंट ज्यादा बड़ा होगा तो अरेस्ट करेगा, ये सारे कॉन्सिक्वेंसेज है। बट जस्ट बिकॉज 2B ज्यादा है आपके 3B से, ये कॉन्सिक्वेंसेज नहीं आएंगे। ये मे बी स्टार्ट पॉइंट हो सकता है कॉन्सिक्वेंसेज का, बट एंड पॉइंट नहीं हो सकता है कि 2B ज्यादा है 3B कम है, सॉरी 3B ज्यादा है 2B कम है। आप एक्सप्लेन करो क्यों कम है, इस महीने कम है, पिछले महीने डिफरेंट था, क्या रीजन है। मैं पिछले 3 महीने का भूला हुआ क्रेडिट अगर आज लूंगा तो लॉजिकल है ना, मेरा आज का 3B ज्यादा होगा मेरे 2B से, बट मेरे पुराने 2Bs को देखो क्या उसका मिसमैच है। और जेन्युइन रीजंस के कारण अगर सामने वाले ने कोई रीजन से अपलोड नहीं किया, वो आप इन्वेस्टिगेट जरूर करो कि क्यों सामने वाले ने अपलोड नहीं किया, उससे कम्युनिकेशन रखो। वो बोलता है कि भूल गया करना, टाइम नहीं है अब करने का, ठीक, तो सारे डॉक्यूमेंटेड रखो, आपके केस में लिटिगेशन में आपको हेल्प करेगा।
एक in one case GST on purchase of crane for business and ITC of rupees 1.52 lakhs not utilized due to proprietor has death.
Okay.
Nominee has sell the crane. In this case, should we proceed for ITC refund or what?
ओके, बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग क्वेश्चन है। एक फिक्स्ड एसेट क्रेन हमने खरीदा, उसकी हमने 1.5 लाख की क्रेडिट ली, उसके कोई रीजन के बाद प्रोप्राइटर का डेथ हो गया, तो जो नॉमिनी है उस बंदे का, उसने उस बिजनेस के कुछ एसेट्स को बेचा। अब समझते हैं क्यों बेचा। क्या वो नॉमिनी बिजनेस कैरी ऑन कर रहा है कि जस्ट एज अ होल्डर ऑफ दैट एस्टेट उसको डिस्पोज ऑफ करने की, कि जो है उनके एसेट्स लाइबिलिटीज को मैं बेच देता हूं, उनके जो भी परिवार वालों को, या मैं खुद हूं पैसे ले लेता हूं, आई वांट टू कंटिन्यू द बिजनेस और नॉट, पहला सिचुएशन, ठीक है। आप बोल रहे हो कि मैं बेच रहा हूं, जो भी है वो कंप्लायंस आप कर रहे हो। दूसरा, आज जब मैं एसेट को बेचूंगा क्रेन को, तो उस पर भी तो एक मेरी आउटपुट टैक्स लाइबिलिटी बनेगी, करेक्ट, बनेगी गगन। तो उस देयर इज अ कैलकुलेशन कैपिटल गुड्स के केस में विच सेज आप जो भी कैपिटल गुड्स खरीदते हो वो 5 साल के मान लो यूज कर रहे हो, तो पूरे 100 रुपए का आपको उसका बेनिफिट 5 साल में मिलना चाहिए। आप ले आज लो पर 5 साल तक यूज करो, पर ईयर 20%, पर क्वार्टर 5%। तो आपने क्रेन खरीदने के जितने दिनों बाद बेचा, उतना परसेंटेज आईटीसी आप रख के बचा हुआ रिवर्सल करना पड़ेगा। तो 1.5 लाख की अगर आपकी आईटीसी थी, आपने 2 साल बाद बेचा, तो 40% 2 साल का आपको उस 1.5 लाख का 60,000 रुपए ही मिलेगा। 90,000 तो आपको आईटीसी अदरवाइज भी रिवर्सल करना है, 90,000, या फिर आपने जो क्रेन बेचा उसके ऊपर जो टैक्स बनता है विच एवर इज हायर। वो तो आपको अदरवाइज भी देना पड़ेगा। तो आप पहले एसेस करो कि क्या 1.5 लाख बच रहा है क्या। मेरे ख्याल से नहीं बचना चाहिए, और अगर बच भी रहा है फॉर टेक्निकल रीजंस नहीं मिलेगा उसका रिफंड।
If invoice shown in 2B but supplier has not paid tax in 3B, whether recipient can claim ITC in
Correct.
this case before 1st January 2022.
बिफोर, चलिए बिफोर की मैं बात करता हूं। यहां पे 2 प्रोविजन आ गई। 2B में देखना जरूरी है कि नहीं, अपन बहुत बार डिस्कस कर दिया। 1 जनवरी के पहले तो कानून नहीं था, मान के चलते हैं, देखना है, दिख रहा है। पर दूसरा एक और कंडीशन था 16(2)(c कि टैक्स हैज टू बी पेड टू द गवर्नमेंट, एक्चुअली पेड टू द गवर्नमेंट। आप बोल रहे हो कि 3B में उसने पेमेंट नहीं किया, आपको कैसे पता 3B में पेमेंट नहीं किया? आप बोले अगर उसने 3B फाइल ही नहीं किया, ठीक है, 3B फाइल नहीं किया मतलब एकदम श्योर है कि टैक्स पे ही नहीं हुआ। एक्चुअली सच में पे का ITC लेके ये तो पता ही नहीं, बट पे ही नहीं हुआ, तो आइडियली आप 16(2)(c की कंडीशन फुलफिल नहीं कर रहे, आपको क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगी। पर लेटर से उसने 3B फाइल कर दिया, इंटरनली आपको पता है कि उसने मेरा अमाउंट नहीं दिखाया या नील रिटर्न फाइल किया। आप तो पोर्टल से देखिए ये भी नहीं पता कर सकते कि सामने वाले ने नील 3B लगाया है कि कुछ वैल्यू डाल के लगाया है। आपको कैसे पता अगले ने नील फाइल किया कि नहीं किया? तो अगेन ये पॉइंट आ जा रही है 16(2)(c की कंस्टिट्यूशनल वैलिडिटी पे। सामने वाले ने 3B ही नहीं लगाया, आपका वीक केस है। पर 3B लगा दिया बट पे किया कि नहीं किया, यू हैव अ स्ट्रॉन्ग केस। बट टेक्निकली आपने जो पूछा, अगर सामने वाले ने टैक्स नहीं दिया तो नहीं मिलेगा ना क्रेडिट। सरकार को पैसे मिले ही नहीं और वो बेनिफिट कैसे दे देगा?
We have supplied chlorine through chlorine tonners and raising e-way bills and e-invoice as per provisions of the Act. After supplying chlorine, empty containers come back to plant itself. Whether we have to generate a e-way for empty tonners.
ओके, तो ये कंटेनर मैं आपकी समझ रहा हूं, आपके व्हीकल में अलग से अटैच्ड है, नॉट अ पार्ट ऑफ योर व्हीकल, करेक्ट? क्योंकि जब व्हीकल लेटर से टाटा की चेसिस है, उसके ऊपर जब वो व्हीकल बनता है, बॉडी बिल्डिंग होती है, तो उसके बाद वो रजिस्टर होती है व्हीकल्स एक्ट में, मोटर व्हीकल एक्ट में। तो आप जो कंटेनर की बात कर रहे हो वो एक सेपरेट कंटेनर की बात कर रहे हो, नॉट अ पार्ट ऑफ द वेसल व्हीकल की बात कर रहे हो। तो एम्प्टी कंटेनर्स आपकी वापस आ रही है, डिलीवरी चलान बनाइए, ई-वे बिल बना के वापस मान ले आइए। बट इफ इट इज अ पार्ट ऑफ योर व्हीकल ओनली, तब उस केस में इट इज अ व्हीकल ओनली विच इज कमिंग बैक ना, देन देयर इज नो गुड्स टू इट। कंटेनर्स 2 तरह की हो सकती है, इट इज अ पार्ट ऑफ अ व्हीकल और इज इट अ अटैचमेंट टू अ व्हीकल। मोटर व्हीकल्स एक्ट में आप देख लो कि वो व्हीकल का पार्ट है कि नहीं। पार्ट है तो नहीं लगेगा, नहीं पार्ट है तो डिलीवरी चलान पे बना के वापस मंगाना पड़ेगा।
तो मतलब वापस जब वो कंटेनर एम्प्टी आ रही है तो उस समय उनका ई-वे बिल वहां से ये डेस्टिनेशन से वो डेस्टिनेशन तक कुछ भी नहीं रहेगा।
नहीं, ई-वे बिल बनेगी ना डिलीवरी चलान के बेसिस पे। अगर एम्प्टी कंटेनर्स है खाली, मान लीजिए मैंने एक कंटेनर है जिसमें क्लोरीन को बंद किया, मान लीजिए कि मेरी कंटेनर है, इसमें मैंने क्लोरीन डाल के एक ट्रक में डाल के भेजा, वहां पे ये कंटेनर आपके यहाँ पे अनलोड कर दिया। अब कंटेनर खाली है, मैं इसको फिर मंगाऊंगा, किसी दूसरे व्हीकल में डाल के मंगा रहा हूं मान लेते हैं, तो एक कंटेनर भी तो एक प्रोडक्ट है ना। तो ये कंटेनर मैं वापस मंगा रहा हूं, अगर डिपार्टमेंट बोलेगा अच्छा तुम तो ये बेच दे रहे हो कच्चे में, तो उसको बताना पड़ेगा नहीं भैया देखो ये रहा डिलीवरी चलान, इट इज फॉर रीजंस अदर देन सप्लाई, मैं अपना ही कंटेनर को माल बेचने के बाद वापस मंगा रहा हूं। तो ये रहा उसका ई-वे बिल अंडर डिलीवरी चलान विच इज नॉट अ सप्लाई। कोई टैक्स लाइबिलिटी नहीं बनेगी, पर माल मंगाने के लिए ई-वे बिल रखना पड़ेगा। नहीं रखोगे तो भाई वो पकड़ लेगा, उस कंटेनर का आपसे 200% पेनल्टी मांगेगा, फिर आप अपील करो, सब करो, तो आपको बनाना पड़ेगा वे बिल।
तो लास्ट 2 क्वेश्चंस हम लोग और लेते हैं, क्योंकि मैं देख रहा हूँ अब क्वेश्चंस का सिलसिला बढ़ते जा रहा है, जितना मैं नीचे बढ़ रहा हूँ क्वेश्चंस और ऐड ऑन होते जा रहे हैं।
PSC ऐसा ही है।
हाँ, तो कैन वी क्लेम क्रेडिट ऑन सीमेंट इफ was required to make any platform for machine being integrated part of machine? ये तो मुझे लगता है कि सिविल स्ट्रक्चर अटैच्ड टू दी मशीन है तो उसका तो ITC मिलेगा।
थोड़ा सा मेरा इसमें डिफरेंट एक व्यू है। प्लांट एंड मशीनरी की डेफिनेशन में से स्पेसिफिकली सिविल स्ट्रक्चर को एक्सक्लूड किया गया है, करेक्ट? तो आप प्लांट एंड मशीनरी के लिए और कोई खर्चा करते हो इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी बनाने के लिए, उसकी मिलेगी। सिविल स्ट्रक्चर की स्पेसिफिक एक्सक्लूजन है फ्रॉम द डेफिनेशन ऑफ प्लांट एंड मशीनरी, सेक्शन 17(5) में दिया हुआ है। वहां पे 3 चीज एक्सक्लूड करता है, सिविल स्ट्रक्चर, टेलीकम्युनिकेशन टावर और पाइपलाइन आउटसाइड द फैक्ट्री। ये 3 प्लांट एंड मशीनरी का हिस्सा हो के भी क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेंगे?
एक बहुत रेलिवेंट क्वेश्चन ये लग रहा है कि बहुत लोग जो है वो क्वार्टरली रिटर्न फाइल करते हैं, तो हाउ टू टेक द क्रेडिट?
तो सरकार ने उनके लिए एक ऑप्शन भी दिया है, आईएफएफ, इनवॉइस फर्निशिंग फैसिलिटी। जो बंदे क्वार्टरली रिटर्न लगा रहे हैं उनको एक ऑप्शन दिया गया है कि आप अपना हर महीने का R1 नहीं लगा के B2B इनवॉइसेस को अपलोड कर दो ताकि सामने वाले को क्रेडिट मिल जाए। हमें ये बहुत अच्छे से समझना है। हाँ सर,
अगर फिर भी वो मान लीजिए वो
तो
मैंडेटरी
आप
है क्या?
डिफॉल्ट है। नहीं, आपको क्रेडिट लेना है तो करना है ना उस सामने वाले बंदे को। तो यहां ये समझते हैं कि जो क्वार्टरली स्कीम सरकार जब लाई थी ना, ये कोई ईज ऑफ कंप्लायंस के लिए नहीं लाई थी। बहुत क्लियरली बोल के लाना चाहिए था कि भैया B2C बेचते हो तो क्वार्टरली में आ जाओ, क्योंकि अगर आप B2B बेचते हो तो सामने वाला पीछे पड़ जाएगा ना आपके क्रेडिट के लिए। तो उस केस में आप मंथली R1 में ही रहो। जब मुझे हर महीने टैक्स कंप्यूट करके पेमेंट करना ही है टैक्स का, हर महीने मुझे को आईएफएफ में B2B लगाना ही है, तो मैं हर महीने की कंप्लायंस कर लूंगा ना। फिर मैं अलग से क्वार्टरली कंप्लायंस करूं, फिर मंथ एंड में एक साथ जाके भी क्यों करूं? तो अगर आप B2B सप्लाई करते हो तो या तो मेरा सजेशन है क्वार्टरली से ऑप्ट आउट करके मंथली पे आ जाओ, नहीं तो आपके वेंडर्स आपके पीछे पड़ जाएंगे। नो लीवे ऑन दिस पार्ट। टेक्निकली अगर आप प्रतीक जी यहां पे ये बोलोगे, जो इनकी सर्कुलर भी आई थी एक्सप्लेन करने के लिए कि वो 120% आपको कंप्यूट कैसे क्या करना है, तो वहां पे इन लोगों ने बोला था कि ड्यू डेट ऑफ फर्निशिंग रिटर्न तक अगर वो लगा दे रहा है तो आपको उसका क्रेडिट उस हिसाब से मिलेगा। तो ड्यू डेट तो सामने वाले के लिए तो 13 तारीख ही होगा ना, एक क्वार्टर के बाद। आइडियली उसका टेक्निकली तो मिलना चाहिए, बट वो सर्कुलर है अगेन। तो मैं आपको यही सजेशन दूंगा, या तो क्वार्टरली वाले को मंथली कर दो या उसकी क्रेडिट्स को आप डेफर करो, अगर आप लिटिगेशन फ्री अपना बिजनेस चाहते हो तो।
गगन जी, एक छोटा सा क्वेश्चन मेरा भी था
हाँ राहुल।
कि जैसे एक मान लीजिए हमने कैंसिलेशन ऑफ GST का फाइल किया, ठीक है, फरवरी 2020 का, एंड उस पे शो कॉज नोटिस आफ्टर 9 मंथ्स आता है, ठीक है?
9 महीने बाद शोकॉज आ रहा है।
हाँ, एंड किसी कारण से वो शो कॉज नोटिस का जो टाइम पीरियड था वो भी लैप्स हो गया, एंड फिर जो अपना रिटर्न फाइल करने का लाइबिलिटी था वो तो मार्च से अराइज हो गया, क्योंकि ये वाला कैंसिलेशन तो आपका इनवैलिड हो गया। तो अब वो वहां से जो फिर आपका पेनल्टी फॉर लेट पेमेंट या डिले पेमेंट आ रहा है, उसका कुछ ऑप्शन है?
लेट पेमेंट क्यों है? आप तो कैंसिलेशन के लिए अप्लाई कर रहे थे। लेट फीस हो सकता है।
हाँ, वही
लेट
फीस,
पेमेंट की पेनल्टी नहीं होनी चाहिए ना,
वही लेट
लेट फीस हो सकती है। तो आपकी क्वेश्चन है लेट फीस क्या होगी। तो पहले तो यहां समझते हैं, ड्यूरिंग द पेंडेंसी ऑफ अ कैंसिलेशन इज इट डीम्ड दैट माई रजिस्ट्रेशन विल बी सस्पेंडेड और इज इट एन ऑप्शन टू द ऑफिसर दैट माई रजिस्ट्रेशन विल बी सस्पेंडेड? तो अगर ये डीम्ड है तो फिर तो मैं बोलूंगा देख, मैंने जिस दिन अप्लाई कर दिया मेरा रजिस्ट्रेशन रिटर्न फाइल करने की लाइबिलिटी बंद हो गई थी, क्योंकि वो डीम्ड सस्पेंडेड है। बट आंसर डीम्ड सस्पेंडेड नहीं है। द ऑफिसर हैज एन ऑप्शन टू सस्पेंड इट ड्यूरिंग द पेंडेंसी ऑफ द प्रोसीडिंग। तो अगर कैंसिलेशन अप्लाई करने के बाद मेरा सस्पेंड नहीं हुआ है तो आई स्टिल हैव टू कंटिन्यू टू फाइल द रिटर्न्स। दैट वाज द लायबिलिटी टू फाइल इट रिटर्न्स टिल द टाइम इट इज कैंसिल्ड और सस्पेंडेड।
तो सर, अब सेशन को हम लोग आगे बढ़ाते हुए वोट ऑफ थैंक्स की तरफ चलते हैं, बिकॉज आई थिंक दिस इज अ नेवर एंडिंग टॉपिक एंड जीएसटी इज सच अ टॉपिक in which everyone has some or the other questions. तो we will surely try to, मैं ये क्या है ना, मैं आपको ये सेंड कर दूंगा क्वेरीज का।
बिल्कुल।
अगर हाँ, we will, ताकि जिनका भी क्वेरी है वो खाली नहीं जाए।
बिल्कुल।
तो we will be moving forward for vote of thanks, which will be given by CA Rahul Sureka.
थैंक यू प्रतीक जी। एंड गगन केडिया सर, आपका जो सेशन था बहुत वंडरफुल था, एंड लास्ट में आपने जो भी इनफैक्ट मेरी भी क्वेरी थी वो भी रिजॉल्व की, तो थैंक यू फॉर दैट। एंड आई विल लाइक टू थैंक श्री प्रतीक गनेरीवाल सर, धनराज ब्रांच CIRC चेयरमैन, कि उन्होंने इतना वंडरफुल सेमिनार कंडक्ट करवाया। एंड हमारे फर्स्ट स्पीकर सर CA आर मोहन सर, उनके जो उन्होंने इंड एस पर सारा कुछ ध्यान दिया था। एंड हमारे साथ और भी हैं विनोद गुप्ता सर जो बोकारो से हैं, रवि अग्रवाल सर बोकारो चैप्टर से, सुनील मेहता सर जो CFO हैं कोल इंडिया से, फिर गगन केडिया सर जो हमारे सेकंड स्पीकर थे, अनूप सर है, फिर अनुराग सिंगल सर फ्रॉम सेल। आपका भी सर बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, आपने अपना कीमती समय दिया। एंड
हमारे साथ बीच में चेयरमैन CIMB के भी जुड़े थे, हंसराज सर, उनका मैं बहुत बहुत थैंक्स करना चाहूँगा। एंड इसी के साथ आज का सेशन क्लोज करते हैं।
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your patient
Thank you.
listening.
Thank you, Rahul ji. Thank you, Gagan ji. Thank you, Vinod ji.